The life of a ninja beginning in the Hidden Mist Village. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 101 Retreat. Looking at the giant sword that cut through the sky, everyone on the battlefield stopped their actions at the same time, holding their breath and watching the unknown changes nervously. The giant sword shone with brilliance and swept straight to the back of the Konoha troops. Boom. There was a loud noise, and the giant sword disappeared, leaving a scratch of nearly 100 meters on the ground, and all the people and objects covered by the scratch disappeared, as if they had disappeared out of thin air. The location where the giant sword swept was behind the Konoha troops, so those who suddenly disappeared were almost all Konoha ninjas. The Konoha ninjas closest to the scratch were also shocked by the scene. They really couldn't understand what they had just seen. The companions who were just joking with them were swept by the white light and disappeared suddenly, without even a footprint left, as if they had never existed. This inexplicable and strange change made them feel a sense of fear in their hearts. Maybe it was because of the flashing giant sword, or maybe the clouds had reached a limit. The clouds opened, and the rain stopped. Under the sky, between the gaps in the clouds, a figure descended to the earth with the rising sun. It was a little old man with white hair and beard. It's Lord Tsuchikage. It's Lord Tsuchikage. Samai Wagakure immediately recognized the person who was slowly descending from the sky. Reinforcement have arrived. Our reinforcement have arrived. Samai Wagakure cried with joy. After a night of fighting, blood flowed like a river, and companions fell one by one. Their army was on the verge of extinction, and now only less than 1/3 of the personnel were left. Their persistence was not in vain, and the reinforcement finally arrived. Compared with the surprise of the Iwagakure side, the Konoha side was worried. The arrival of the Iwagakure reinforcement means the addition of new forces. After a night of fighting, they are about to enter a hard battle. For a time, many Iwagakure on the battlefield once again raised their fighting spirit and firmly resisted Konoha's offensive. Konoha's morale dropped, and the offensive slowed down a lot. On the other side, seeing the figure descending from the sky, Orochimaru quickly recognized that it was the third Tsuchikage of the Iwagakure village, Anoki. He was called Anoki of the Two Scales. At the same time, he also realized that the shining giant sword that had just cut through the clouds was the opponent's unique dust release ninjutsu. A ninjutsu that surpassed the blood limit, known as bloodline elimination. If there were a few people in the ninja world that he was afraid of, Anoki was one of them. The opponent's dust release could decompose everything and beat the person who was hit into ashes, turning him into an existence smaller than dust. Even his unique stand technique had no room to play under this ninjutsu. It was one of the few ninjutsu in the ninja world that could really kill him. This was also the reason why he was afraid of the opponent. At the same time, Rata, who was 1,000 meters away from the battlefield, learned the news of the arrival of the Iwagakure reinforcement at the moment Anoki made his move through the communication of the sand village Yanbu. It's time for us to go on the field. He pressed down the windward on his hat, and a smug smile appeared on his face. All troops attack. The target is Konoha. Then, he gave the order to attack. After hearing his order, the sand village troops behind him immediately rushed to the battlefield with high spirits. Since the beginning of the war, they have always been the beaten party. It was not until Rasa came to power that they breathed a sigh of relief. They have been suppressed for too long. They need the blood of the enemy to satisfy their inner desire for victory. Countless sand village ninjas, wearing brown light armor, rushed up from the back of Konoha like surging yellow sand. Lord Jiraiya. Sand village has launched an attack. A Konoha Ranbu immediately found Jiraiya, who was charging on the battlefield, to report the situation. What? Wiping the blood off his face, Jiraiya frowned, looked at the figure descending from the sky, and cursed. These damn guys, they really know how to pick the right time. Earlier, he was very curious why Sand Village had not launched an attack yet, but now he understood that they wanted to take advantage of the situation. Helplessly, he had to order them. Pass the order. The whole army is ready to retreat. Also, go find Orochimaru and Minato, and we will cover the rear together to cover the retreat of the main force. Yes. Before he finished speaking, the Konoha Ranbu who reported the news had disappeared. On the other side, seeing the appearance of an Oki, Orochimaru immediately understood that they were going to retreat. The reinforcement from Iwagakure arrived, and there was no need for them to continue fighting, because it would only result in both sides being injured. At this moment, a Konoha Ranbu ninja landed beside him. Lord Orochimaru, Lord Jiraiya has ordered a retreat, and he wants you to go back and cover the retreat of the main force. The Enbu ninja bowed his head and said respectfully, "Okay, I got it." Orochimaru waved his hand impatiently, frowned and said, "You can go down." Yes. Then, the Enbu ninja of Konoha quietly left, looking at the boy not far away, and then at the masked Mist Ninja standing between the two. Orochimaru's face flashed with unwillingness. Although this Jonin level Mist Ninja was not his opponent, he was not a small fish that he could deal with in a few moves. The Konoha troops were about to retreat, and he no longer had the extra time to entangle here. Thinking of this, he took a deep look at the boy and sneered, "Kid, you're lucky this time. Next time, you will never escape from my palm. Who knows what will happen in the future." Facing Orochimaru's golden vertical pupils, Qishuang returned a victorious smile. HMPH. Orochimaru didn't say much, just snorted coldly, and then quietly retreated. Only the snake corpse with its head cut off by King and the half of the snake body solidified in the mucus of Terumi Mei's dissolving escape left on the ground, indicating that he had been here before. When Orochimaru's figure completely disappeared from his sight, King breathed a long sigh of relief. It was too much pressure for him to face such a strong man of this level. Without bothering to greet the leader King, Qishuang immediately rushed over to support Terumi Mei, who couldn't even stand steadily, fearing that she would fall to the ground again. As for Zabuza on the ground, he didn't try to help him up, because he didn't have much strength left, and being able to support Terumi Mei was already the limit. "Why are you two here? Didn't I tell everyone to flee separately?" Qishuang looked at the two. I just want to try the methods of the legendary three ninjas," Zabuza replied weakly. Terumi suddenly blushed and said shyly, Didn't you say before, if I was caught by Orochimaru, you would come to save me?" So, hearing this, Qishuang felt as if a big stone was stuffed into his heart, and he felt very uncomfortable. His nose suddenly felt sore, and he squeezed Terumi's little hand tightly, and apologized again and again. I'm sorry. "Why, you want to say sorry?" the little girl asked puzzled. "No reason." Facing the innocent gaze of the little girl, Qishuang tried hard not to shed tears, forced a smile, and quietly added in his heart, "I won't lie to you again. Eluosha, you bunch of unruly people, you always want me to anal the three ninjas of Konoha. You guys are happy, but I'm going to open the skull. Catching a fighter plane is a technical job, do you understand?" Chapter 102 Tsuchikage. Looking at the figure descending from the sky, Terumi seemed to remember something, and asked Qishuang in a suggestive manner, "By the way, who is that guy? Do you recognize him? What was that light that just fell from the sky? It scared those Konoha ninjas." At this point, she couldn't help but burst out laughing. Qishuang turned her head to look at the short figure, and said in a complicated tone, "That's the third generation Tsuchikage of Iwagakure village, an Oki. An Oki is a rare ninja in the ninja world, who can fly ninjutsu, and coupled with his short stature, he recognized him at a glance. The shining light just now should be his dust release ninjutsu," he added. "It's Tsuchikage and Oki, bloodline elimination, dust release." Hearing these two pieces of news, Terumi restrained her smile. Although she had only heard of the name of dust release, and had never really seen it, the terrifying power of dust release, that decomposes all matter into dust, has long been famous in the ninja world. Hearing Qishuang mention it, she really couldn't laugh anymore. "Captain, is that really an Oki?" Because the target was far away, and difficult to identify, she could only ask the team leader King to confirm again. With the power of the Byakugan, it should be easy to confirm the identity of the other party at this distance. Because Konoha began to retreat, no one came to provoke them. King did not deliberately go to cause trouble. He slowly picked up Zabuza, who was covered in mud, and probed the power of the Byakugan into the distance. An old man with a big red nose came into view. This image coincided with the appearance of the third generation Tsuchikage in his memory, and he immediately confirmed the identity of the man, Anoki. Yes, that's him. King nodded. He really didn't expect that Tsuchikage, as the head of a village, would actually lead the team here in person. Oh my god, are we going to see the battle between the Dust Release and the Konoha-Sanin today? Mediterumi flushed with excitement, looking at the figure floating in the air, her eyes full of excitement. This possibility is not high. Nanashi shook her head. Why? Mediterumi asked in confusion, and the dying Zabuza also cast a puzzled look. Only the leader king seemed to be thinking about something. Seeing that the two were very curious, Nanashiro had to explain slowly. Dust Release is indeed extremely powerful, but Noki is no longer young, and has already aged. Compared with Orochimaru and others who are in their prime, the physical difference is particularly obvious. Hearing this, the two friends nodded in agreement. Noki has been famous for many years, and now he is an old man in his 60s, and there is no comparison with the three ninjas of Konoha. Qishuang continued, in this situation, if the old man Anoki fights the three ninjas of Konoha, the final result will definitely be a loss for both sides. Konoha is fine. Even if the three ninjas are killed or injured, it is unlikely that they will be completely destroyed. There are also rising stars like Namikaze Minato and Shunshin Shisu. As for Iwagakure, from the slaughter of Orochimaru and others on the battlefield, as if they were in an empty space, it can be seen that Iwagakure lacks high-end combat power very seriously. If they lose the highly deterrent means such as Dust Release, Iwagakure will probably be seriously injured. Therefore, Anoki is unlikely to fight the three ninjas of Konoha head-on. Even if there is a simple exchange of moves, it will not be a life and death fight. After saying that, he shook his head and sighed. Talents are precious in any era. Anoki is so old that he has to lead the team to the battlefield in person. I'm afraid he is also extremely helpless. There is no successor to Iwagakure. Is that so? Hearing this, Mediterumi couldn't help but feel a little disappointed, and her face immediately fell, like a bitter gourd. Zabuza slightly drooped his eyelids and was silent, thinking that he must be very disappointed. Only King, after listening to Nanashiro's analysis, had a look of praise in his eyes. On the other side, the third Tsuchikage Anoki, who was suspended in the air, looked at the Konoha ninjas who were retreating like the tide below, and felt very heavy. Because after the tide receded, there would always be many surprises left on the beach. But now, what he left after the tide receded was not surprise, but sadness. The ground was full of corpses, and blood flowed like a river. Among those corpses, there were those from Iwagakure, Konoha, and a small number of those from Kirigakure, but they were the majority from Iwagakure. Looking back behind him, it was all desolate. The Iwagakure ninja army, which was supposed to be densely packed, was now only a sparse part, less than 1/3 of the original. He knew that Iwagakure had lost. The situation was over. Even if he had the indestructible Dust Release, he couldn't save Iwagakure from defeat, and he was powerless. Looking at Jiraiya and Orochimaru who were at the back, he wanted to rush down and fight, kill those top masters, and let Konoha feel the same pain, but he knew that he couldn't, and it was difficult to do it. Entanglement would only make the situation of Iwagakure worse and the losses more severe. He is the shadow of a village. He must consider the overall situation and the people who are still alive. The land of Earth also needs corresponding power to maintain stability. Therefore, Iwagakure can't fight anymore, at least not now. Charge. Kill. Looking at the Konoha troops retreating, the remaining Iwagakure ninjas shouted and killed one after another, and many of them chased after them with red eyes. After a night of fighting, they didn't know how many companions had died, and the hatred had long been deep-rooted. They didn't want to end it like this. Seeing this, Anoki immediately landed on the ground and blocked the Iwagakure ninjas. Stop. Stop. He shouted loudly. Seeing the short old man with a red nose blocking the way, the rock ninjas did not dare to act recklessly and immediately stopped the pursuit. Because the old man was their honorable Tsuchikage. My lord, they killed so many of our companions, we can't just let them go. Immediately, the bloodstained rock ninja shouted loudly. Yes, we can't let them go. No. Then, the crowd was indignant, and the rock ninjas who were blocked were like ignited gunpowder barrels, and they exploded immediately. Quiet. quiet. Everyone, be quiet. Listen to me. It took a lot of effort for Inoki to suppress the many excited voices. The rock ninjas reluctantly calmed down. Time is really unforgiving. He took a few breaths and smiled bitterly. Now he even feels tired when shouting loudly. Afterwards, he slowly flew over the heads of the crowd and said loudly, I know you all lost your companions, friends, brothers, and lovers last night, and you are very sad and heartbroken. But this is not a reason for you to chase after them and die. Seeing that everyone was silent, and sobbing was faintly heard from the crowd, he changed the subject and continued, look at the remaining companions beside you, and think about your relatives and friends in the Iwagakure village who are waiting for your return. Don't you think their sadness is heavy enough? Do you want them to shed their tears? I don't want to stop you from taking revenge, but now is not the time for revenge. If you want to hate, hate me. As at such a age, I stopped you from taking revenge, and left you with painful memories. I'm not a qualified leader. All this hatred and guilt will be borne by me, so please go back. At the end, Inoki's voice gradually weakened, and the audience was already crying. Chapter 103 Invisible. On the other side, the 4th Kazakage Rasa led the Sand Village troops to attack the rear of Konoha, forcing Konoha to temporarily avoid the front and temporarily change the direction of retreat. Unfortunately, he was not here to fight Konoha to death, but just wanted to fight and vent the resentment that Sand Village had accumulated over the years. He had no intention of fighting Konoha to the death. After the Sand Village troops, who were waiting for the opportunity, beat up the exhausted Konoha ninjas, he chose to stop chasing. If they continued to chase, the Konoha troops would fight to the death with them. Although there were many dissatisfactions in their hearts, after a fierce battle, Konoha was defeated, and the Sand Village ninjas' desire to fight had been vented by more than half. Therefore, they all obeyed Rasa's ceasefire order very obediently. At this point, the battle between Konoha and Iwagakure came to an end. On the battlefield, Nanashimo supported Meditarumi and slowly retreated with the Iwagakure troops. Suddenly, the little girl stopped walking. She pointed to a huge gully about 100 meters long not far away and asked curiously, look, what is that? Although there was a distance between them, she noticed the strange crack at a glance. It looked like a wound left by a sharp weapon on the ground. The two sides of the crack were extremely flat, which was very different from the normal natural landform. It was more like a terrain that was changed by humans. In addition, when she passed by there last night, she didn't remember there was such a crack nearby. She had every reason to believe that it was not a natural terrain. That should be the mark left by Inoki's dust release earlier. Looking at the deep crack, Qishuang frowned and said, he still remembered that Inoki's dust release ninjutsu happened to fall nearby. In addition, the edge of the crack was very flat, almost smooth, and it was definitely not left naturally. Apart from the indestructible dust release, he really couldn't think of any other means to leave such a mark. Ah, that dust release is so powerful. Hearing this, Meditarumi dropped her jaw in shock. She had heard of the fame of dust release for a long time, but this was the first time she witnessed its destructive power so directly. Take me over there to have a look. She pointed at the crack and shouted excitedly. Okay. It was rare that she was so interested, so Qishuang did not refuse and immediately helped her over there. As for King, he was in a hurry to treat Zabuza's injuries and ignored the two of them and had already left. The two of them slowly walked closer and looked at the crack that was several meters deep. Meditarumi was so shocked that she couldn't speak. What made her even more terrified was that both sides of the crack were as smooth as a mirror, and the roughness of soil and rock could not be seen at all. It was simply a work of God. That is the power to decompose all tangible things. With the power of decomposition, dust release is completely an indestructible weapon. Looking at the strange and weird crack, Qishuang was also full of emotion. Is there any power in this world that can stop its attack? Meditarumi suddenly turned her head and asked. She couldn't think of a way to resist this terrifying power, so she had to throw this question to the quick-witted Qishuang. Looking at the little girl's expectant eyes, Qishuang gave a positive answer. Yes, tell me. Meditarumi was very excited, and she knew that she had not made a mistake. Seriously speaking, there are many ways to directly fight against dust release, but they are not easy to achieve. Qishuang sighed and continued, the effect of dust release is decomposition. Ordinary tangible objects can't resist its decomposition ability at all. With this ability, it seems indestructible. From this perspective, it can't decompose intangible objects, but it can be resisted by intangible objects. Intangible objects? Meditarumi frowned, rolled her eyes at him and said, how can intangible objects resist other people's attacks? In the normal thinking of people, only tangible objects have defensive capabilities, such as shields, walls, armor, swords, and these specific material objects have defensive capabilities. She really couldn't imagine how invisible things could build a defensive effect. Originally, Qishuang himself didn't know how to use invisible things to resist the effect of dust release, but the ability of a person gave him inspiration. That person was called Pin. To be precise, it was the ability of Tendao Pin, Shinra Tensei, that gave him inspiration. The effect of Shinra Tensei is to repel all visible and invisible things, but it does not directly use chakra to act on the opponent to achieve the effect, but uses chakra as a power source to create a repulsive force. Through the repulsive force, all visible and invisible things are repelled. Theoretically, dust release cannot decompose the conceptual thing of force at all, because force itself is not an actual material structure. Therefore, Shinra Tensei can completely resist dust release. However, Pin rarely appears, and at this time, he has not even appeared yet. Naturally, he can't use this guy to explain to Meditarumi how to resist dust release with invisible things. But inspired by the repulsive force, he thought of many other examples. For example, the power of space and time. Do you remember the flying thunder god technique I mentioned to you earlier? He asked the little girl in a suggestive manner. I remember. What's wrong? Meditarumi asked in surprise. Nanashi smiled slightly and said, the root of the flying thunder god technique is to use the power of space and time to move. If we use the power of space and time to set up a defense, do you think that the dust release can decompose the empty space and time power? After saying that, he blinked at the little girl and smiled very proudly. Space and time power. Hearing this, Meditarumi was speechless. She knew clearly that the power of space and time is invisible and intangible. It is precisely because of its unpredictability and difficulty to perceive that there are few ninjas in the ninja world who can use space and time techniques. If this kind of power is used to set up a defense, the dust release will not be able to break it. Because although the dust release is strong, it does not have the power to break space. The only thing that can break space is the power of space. Then, she curled her lips and said, the power of time and space is too difficult to comprehend. There are not many ninjas who can use time and space techniques in the entire ninja world. Your method is not very applicable. Qishuang shook her head and continued, indeed, it is too difficult to resist dust release with invisible objects, but I have another way. Speak. Meditarumi was delighted, and her brown eyes had narrowed into two crescents. Looking at the amazing crack, Qishuang sighed and asked whether it is your dissolution release or my ice release. It is impossible to block the old guy's dust release. Have you ever thought about why? Meditarumi, who did not get an answer, was a little unhappy. She curled her lips and said impatiently, didn't you say that dust release decomposes everything, so any defense is useless in front of it? Qishuang nodded and continued, but have you ever thought about why it can decompose everything instead of not? Chapter 104 equal. Facing his question, Meditarumi was confused. Seeing this, Qishuang sighed and continued, it's like your dissolution has the ability to corrode, as if everything can be corroded, but is it really so? Meditarumi slowly pulled out his left arm, thought for a while, and then shook her head and said, although my dissolution is said to corrode everything, there are still some things that cannot be corroded. For example, diamonds and so on. Is it that your dissolution can't corrode, or those things themselves can't be corroded? Standing on the edge of the crack, Qishuang slowly squatted down and asked again. It should be that those things can't be corroded, right? Meditarumi held her chin and said uncertainly, no. Qishuang took a small stone from the crack on the ground and continued, the strongest corrosive force in the world is time. Under time, nothing can exist forever. He looked at the rising sun in the sky and said, even the seemingly eternal sun will wither under time. Therefore, there has never been anything in this world that is eternal and incorruptible. So what? What does this have to do with my dissolution? Being completely refuted, Terumi Mei was a little unconvinced. Crushing the small stone in his hand, Qishuang shook his head and chuckled. I want to tell you that it's not that those things can't be corroded by your dissolution, but that your dissolution corrosive power is too weak. Or in other words, your corrosive power can't reach the level of corroding those substances, and their material structure is beyond the scope of your corrosive ability. If you want to corrode them, you have to improve your dissolution corrosive power to a higher level. Humph. Terumi Mei snorted heavily. Being taught by him like this, she really couldn't be happy. Seeing that she still didn't care, Qishuang smiled bitterly and said, do you think that I mentioned dissolution release just to tease you? Isn't it? Terumi Mei raised her eyebrows and curled her lips. Of course not. Qishuang shook her head again, pointing to the cracks on the ground next to her and said, just like your dissolution release corrosive power, an oak's dust release decomposition power actually has an upper limit. Human power is limited, and human power cannot be compared with nature. Just as everything in the world can be corroded, everything in the world can also be decomposed, but an Oki is a human after all, and he has his own limits. His limit is the upper limit of the dust release decomposition power. The reason why we feel that his dust release is indestructible is because his dust release decomposition power is at a very high level, and there is almost nothing in the mortal world that can resist it. As long as we can find something that is at the same level as the dust release decomposition power, or higher than the level of the dust release decomposition power, we can resist it. It's the same as saying nothing. From the beginning, didn't I ask you how to resist dust release? Terumi Mei was a little impatient. After being lectured for a long time, she still didn't get the answer she wanted. Her patience was almost worn out. Slowly standing up, Qishuang shook her index finger and said with a smile, I have already told you the method to resist dust release in that sentence just now. When did you say that? Terumi Mei glared at him with her beautiful eyes, and she was on the verge of losing her temper. Qishuang looked calm and said slowly, didn't I say that we only need to find something that is at the same level as the power of dust release decomposition, or at a level that exceeds the power of dust release decomposition? Arsehole. After hearing this, Terumi Mei was so angry that she kicked him and cursed. How do I know what level the power of dust release decomposition is? How can I judge whether something exceeds or is equal to the level of the power of dust release decomposition? Unfortunately, she was injured, and her movements were not fast enough, so Qishuang dodged it easily. Don't be angry. Nanashi stepped forward, supported him again, and said with a smile, it is indeed impossible to judge the level of the decomposition power of dust release, but the energy level of dust release itself is very easy to judge. Huh? Terumi Mei was still confused. Let me ask you, what type of ninjutsu is dust release? Nanashi asked again. Kekuri, elimination. Terumi Mei replied hesitantly. That's right. Nana Frost snapped her fingers and laughed again. Dust release is a bloodline elimination ninjutsu. Although we don't know the level of its own decomposition power, we can easily judge that the ninjutsu of the same bloodline elimination must be of the same energy level as dust release. Just as the defense of simultaneous space can only be broken by the power of time and space, bloodline elimination ninjutsu can only be resisted by bloodline elimination ninjutsu. Although bloodline elimination ninjutsu of the same level may not be able to completely block the power of dust release, facing the ninjutsu of the same bloodline elimination, dust release will definitely not be as destructive as decomposing other powers. It is completely enough to resist the attack of dust release. Hearing this, Terumi Mei immediately lost her temper. Using bloodline elimination to fight against bloodline elimination is indeed a way. But, in the ninja world, apart from dust release, I have never heard of other types of bloodline elimination ninjutsu. Terumi Mei frowned and asked again. She felt that this method was a bit tasteless. Looking at the smooth cracks on the two walls, Qishuang said meaningfully, in this world, there were no bloodline limit ninjutsu originally. It was after countless generations of attempts that the properties of two basic escape techniques were combined to create the bloodline limit ninjutsu of today. And the same is true for dust release. It didn't exist at all. It appeared in the world after the previous Tsuchikage combined the 3 chakra nature changes of wind, fire, and earth. As he said, he turned his head and looked at the little girl beside him, saying playfully, there are 7 basic chakra nature changes in the world: wind, thunder, water, fire, earth, yin and yang. Can't we combine other types of bloodline elimination ninjutsu except dust release? Or, in other words, besides inheriting the legacy of our predecessors, can't we develop new bloodline elimination ninjutsu ourselves? Being questioned by him, Meditarumi fell into deep thought. She inherited the legacy of her ancestors and possessed the dissolution release, so she never considered surpassing her ancestors. She always thought about how to fully exert the power of the dissolution release and show the glory of her ancestors. Now, Qishuang's wild thoughts were like a key that opened a door in her heart. For the first time, she had the idea of walking in front of the ancestor and taking a look at the new scenery. Seeing that she didn't say anything, Qishuang said again, if you still have doubts about the method of using blood elimination to resist dust release, then I will tell you another method that can definitely resist dust release. What? Meditarumi was shocked. The effect of dust release was too strong, and she had seen it with her own eyes, so she did have some doubts about the method of using blood elimination to resist dust release. Now, how could she not be surprised to hear that Qishuang still had a method that could definitely resist dust release? As for whether Qishuang would lie to her, she had no doubt. Because of the blood elimination countermeasure method just now, Qishuang would not throw out a worse method anyway. Chapter 105. Remarks on the release. It's on the shelves. Unfortunately, my book is on the shelves without any collections. I feel so sad. If you think it's still worthy of your attention, please subscribe and support it. Also, the new book investment group has not yet gathered 100 people. Please help me. Click on the book details page of Kidian app and find the new book investment group to invest quickly, please. I need the promotion effect of the investment group to increase popularity. When the popularity increases, the number of book friends will increase, and I will also have the motivation to write books. Because the time to open the VIP chapter is after 12 noon, there is no update this morning. Sorry. Well, in the afternoon, if nothing goes wrong, there will be 6 updates. 6 updates. Actually, I prepared the manuscripts in advance, and I wrote them temporarily, so I definitely can't write so many. After all, it's on the shelves today, so I have to be happy. Finally, I want to say that for a new writer like me who has no fan base, I'm afraid that everyone will support the book. There are not many book friends in the first place. If everyone supports the book, it will easily become a eunuch. So, I urge everyone not to support the book. Don't keep books. Don't keep books. Important things should be said 3 times. Chapter 106. Beyond. Looking at the distant sky, Nanashi sighed. Before the appearance of dust release, no one had ever thought that combining 3 basic chakra properties could obtain a bloodline elimination ninjutsu. People only know that combining 2 chakra properties can obtain a bloodline limit ninjutsu. Now, the dust release that combines 3 chakra property changes has appeared, which proves that combining multiple chakra property changes can gain new power. What if we combine 4, 5, 6, or 7 property changes? As he said this, he turned his head and smiled meaningfully at the little girl. Do you mean to develop an ninjutsu that is higher than the bloodline elimination? Meditarumi exclaimed. Yes. Nanashi nodded and continued. Dust release only combines 3 chakra property changes. If we can develop a ninjutsu that combines more chakra properties, its energy level will definitely exceed dust release. By then, how much do you think the decomposition power of dust release can still be exerted under this ninjutsu? After saying this, he showed an extremely confident smile. Hearing this, Meditarumi immediately fell into deep thought. Theoretically, a ninjutsu that combines more than 3 chakra nature changes will definitely have an energy level higher than Kekkai elimination. If even such a ninjutsu cannot resist dust release, it would be a huge joke. But, are you sure that combining more than 3 chakra nature changes can really create a high level ninjutsu? Meditarumi asked uncertainly with a troubled look on her face. Have you heard of Kekkai net? Nana Frost asked back. Kekkai net? Terumi asked in surprise. What is that? This name is very similar to Kekoi Genkei and Kekoi Elimination. Is there any connection between them? After glancing around and making sure that there was no one around, Nana Frost lowered her voice and said slowly, the name Kekoi Net is so similar to the other two names. It is indeed not a coincidence, but there is definitely some connection. Because it is also a ninjutsu that combines multiple chakra nature changes, but it combines 7 basic chakra nature changes. What? Terumi was so shocked that she couldn't close her mouth. Qishuang made a silent gesture and glanced around. When she found that no one was approaching, she whispered, keep your voice down. What I'm telling you is top secret information in the ninja world. No more than 10 people know it. Don't let any third person hear it. Seeing his cautious look, Terumi immediately understood that Qishuang was not joking. She lowered her voice and asked, how did you know? Why haven't I heard anyone say it? Don't ask me about it. It's a personal secret. Qishuang raised the corner of her mouth, and her pride was beyond words. Humph. Forget it. Terumi snorted heavily, obviously unhappy. Seeing this, Qishuang comforted her. I don't tell you, because I have my own difficulties. Don't ask anymore. It will kill you. Is it that serious? Terumi covered her mouth in fear. Of course. Qishuang nodded, while nervously paying attention to the surrounding situation, whispered, this is top secret information in the ninja world. If others hear it, they will definitely come to my door to make trouble. Even the intelligence department of our village will be very interested in these things. By then, I'm afraid I will die without a burial place. So, what I told you today, you can only remember in your mind, and don't mention it to anyone. After saying that, he solemnly instructed the little girl. Although it was a little confusing, seeing Qishuang's serious look, Terumi also knew the seriousness of the matter and immediately patted her chest and promised, don't worry, no matter who it is, I won't tell it. Even if it's the captain and Zabuza, I won't tell it. I won't tell it even if I die. No, no, no. Hearing this, Qishuang hurriedly waved her hand to stop him and said, there's no need to die. Just don't mention it to others casually. Yeah. Terumi nodded and agreed. In fact, she didn't care how important this information was. What she cared about was that Nana was willing to share such important information with her. Even if it would put her life in danger, she was willing to share it with her. Hey, where was I just now? Nana scratched her head awkwardly. Kekoi Net. Terumi added in a low voice. Yes, Kekoi Net. Nana nodded, glanced around, and continued. Kekoi Net combines 7 basic chakra nature changes. It can be said to be the highest level of ninjutsu known. But, does this ninjutsu really exist? Terumi still expressed doubt. She didn't doubt Nana was lying, but that the ninjutsu that combined 7 chakra nature changes was too incredible. In the current ninja world, there is only one bloodline elimination that combines 3 changes. She really can't believe that such a ninjutsu exists. Of course it exists. Nana insisted and said faintly, 6 Paths Sage. He has the power of this bloodline net. But isn't the 6 Paths Sage a legendary figure, and doesn't he exist at all? Terumi was once again shocked by the information revealed by her companions. No, the 6 Paths did exist. Nanashiro shook her head and whispered, the 9-tailed beasts in the ninja world were left by the 6 Paths Sage. If you have the chance in the future, find a tailed beast to have a good exchange, and you can prove that I did not lie to you. And what I want to tell you is that even the bloodline network that integrates 7 chakra property changes can exist. Then other ninjutsu that is higher than the bloodline elimination and lower than the bloodline network theoretically do exist. It's just that in the ninja world, the highest achievement of ninjutsu nowadays is only 1 bloodline elimination, dust release. Even the other bloodline eliminations have not appeared yet. It is naturally a long way to go to integrate more than 3 property changes and higher level ninjutsu. As he said that, he glanced at the little girl next to him and joked, if you have the confidence, you can try it. Anyway, you already have the dissolution release that integrates the water and soil properties. If you add another property change, it will be bloodline elimination. If you can add 2 more property changes, you will be the first person in the ninja world to open up a ninjutsu that surpasses the bloodline elimination. Hearing this, looking at the cracks on the ground, Terumi pinched her chin and said subconsciously, well, your suggestion is good. If I can really develop a ninjutsu that surpasses a bloodline elimination, then I can also become a legend like the 6 Paths Sage. You are not serious, are you? It is very dangerous to rashly fuse multiple chakra nature changes. Nana Frost said in astonishment. Huh. Of course it's true. Terumi wrinkled her nose and said seriously, others can develop a dust escape that fuses 3 nature changes, why can't I try it? Originally, she had never considered these, but after hearing what Nana Frost said today, she had an idea. She wants to surpass her predecessors and break through the limit of dissolution escape. The first update is on the shelves. Chapter 107 Roads. But then again, you know so many things, haven't you ever thought about trying it yourself? Terumi asked the little boy beside her curiously. Me? Nanashi was slightly stunned, then shook her head and said, in the current stage of the development of ninjutsu in the ninja world, the technology and information for fusing chakra nature changes are not very mature. Even the bloodline limit that fuses 2 nature changes has not yet been fully revealed. On this basis, developing bloodline elimination that fuses 3 nature changes is almost the limit. And the ninjutsu that fuses more than 3 nature changes and is more advanced than bloodline elimination only exists in theory. It is harder than climbing to the sky to really develop such a ninjutsu. If someone really came up with it, that guy must be the illegitimate son of the goddess of luck. I don't think I have such a deep background. After saying that, he turned his head and winked at the little girl playfully. In terms of the current development of ninjutsu, in addition to unparalleled talent, you also need bursting luck to develop a ninjutsu that surpasses bloodline elimination. Although he said that he was not lucky enough, he knew it very well in his heart. If even time travel was not considered lucky, then no one in the world would be luckier than him. If we really want to compare, I'm afraid that except for those 2, no one can compare with him. However, talent is too complicated. Being good at physical skills is a talent. Being good at ninjutsu is a talent. Having a high affinity with chakra of a certain attribute is a talent. Being good at creation is a talent. Being quick thinking is a talent. And even having enough knowledge is a talent. Talent is not a single thing. It contains too much content. Therefore, he really couldn't figure out what level of talent he had. He just vaguely felt that he was better than most mediocre people. In addition, in the ninja world, only one blood-related elimination ninjutsu has appeared. If you want to study a higher level of ninjutsu on this basis, it is tantamount to building castles in the air, and the hope is really slim. Therefore, he did not have the interest and energy to try. Hearing this, the little girl raised her eyebrows, glared at him, and said angrily, since you are not willing to try, why are you still using it to deceive me? Before he finished speaking, Qishuang felt a piercing pain in his waist. Looking down, he saw that it was Terumi Mei's little hand that grabbed the soft flesh of his waist. Hiss! Qishuang took a breath of cold air and cried out in pain. Let go, it hurts so much. Seeing his face grimacing in pain, Terumi Mei finally let go of her little hand with satisfaction and cursed again. I'll let you deceive me. How can that be considered deceiving you? Rubbing the soft flesh of his waist, Qishuang smiled bitterly and said, those things exist in theory, but it is difficult to achieve at this stage. Humph. I don't care. You just deceived me. Terumi Mei snorted and turned her head away, looking angry. Seeing this, Qishuang was helpless and had to say a lot of nice things to coax her. Then, Terumi asked again, it's impossible to combine more than 3 nature changes, but there is a successful example of combining 3 to complete bloodline elimination. Don't you really want to give it a try? You also have the ice release bloodline limit. If you add any new chakra nature change, it will be a new bloodline elimination ninjutsu. As she spoke, her expression became more and more excited, and she danced with joy, as if she had already seen herself creating a new bloodline elimination ninjutsu. Nana Frost shook her head and said solemnly, it's too dangerous to combine chakra nature changes. If you are not careful, you will hurt your own meridians. I don't plan to try that dangerous path. Then what do you want to do? Meditarumi asked curiously. The power of bloodline elimination is obvious to all, but Nana Frost has no intention of trying it. She is really curious. Nana Frost did not answer immediately, but silently stretched out her left hand and slowly spread it out. Seeing this scene, Meditarumi held her breath and stared at her companion's left hand. She saw her 5 fingers loosen, and a crystal clear ice bead appeared in her palm. Isn't it just an ordinary ice bead? Just as she was thinking this, the crystal ice bead changed. The ice bead melted at a speed visible to the naked eye, and turned into a water bowl floating in Qishuang's palm. Ice water transformation. Your ice escape is more and more controlled by your heart. Terumi Medi sighed. Is it really just that? Qishuang showed her a playful smile, and said, take a closer look. What is there to see? Although she was a little impatient, Terumi Medi still opened her beautiful eyes, and looked carefully again. However, after scanning up and down for no less than 5 times, she still couldn't see anything. Isn't it just when she was about to give up, she noticed that the color in the center of the water ball seemed a little unusual. In the middle of the originally light blue water ball, there was a wisp of white, as if there were some impurities in the water ball. However, she knew clearly that this water ball was transformed by Qishuang's chakra, not drawn from nature, and there was no way there would be any impurities. There seems to be something in your water ball, Meditarumi said in surprise. That's ice. There's ice mixed in it. Qishuang replied with a smile. How can ice coexist with water? Hearing this, Meditarumi almost jumped up. Her reaction was even more intense than Orochimaru's. She really couldn't understand how Qishuang could use chakra to perform 2 changes at the same time. Why is it impossible? Qishuang asked her back. This. Stunned by his question, Meditarumi didn't know how to answer for a moment, so she could only wrinkle her nose and said angrily, anyway, it's impossible. Hearing this, Qishuang laughed and said, you say it's impossible, there must be a reason, right? You can't just say it's impossible, based on your subjective judgment, and it really can't be impossible. Then what's the matter with the ice in my water bowl now? After saying that, he held the water bowl and shook it in front of the little girl's eyes as a gesture. Her eyes were fixed on a streak of white in the water bowl. Meditarumi still did not give up and said, open the water bowl and let me see what's inside. Qishuang did not say a word, but silently controlled the chakra to change the shape of the water bowl. Meditarumi stared at it intently, afraid of missing anything. I saw a crack slowly appear on the top and extend inside. Soon, the streak of white in the water bowl was completely revealed in front of him. It was a piece of ice. A piece of ice floating in the water, like a piece of gauze falling into the water. How did you do it? Looking at the incredible scene, Meditarumi asked in surprise, covering her mouth. Looking around, seeing that the people on the battlefield had almost retreated, Qishuang scattered the water bowl in his hand, shook off the water stains on his hands, glanced at the direction of everyone's retreat, and gestured, let's go, talk while walking. The second update is on the shelves. Chapter 108, Escape Technique, Part 1. On the way, Meditarumi asked again, how did you do that? Qishuang sighed lightly, and spread out his left hand again. Chakra moved with his heart, passing through the meridians of his arm, and reaching the palm. When it passed through his body, it transformed into water properties. Then, an egg-sized water ball appeared in his palm again. He slowly explained, although water can condense into ice, the condensation process is not completed in an instant. Just like the river water in winter, the river surface freezes, starting from the shore, and then spreading to the middle of the river. Although our chakra property transformation is not a natural creation in the true sense, it is after all created by simulating natural things, and cannot be completely separated from the laws of nature. And my water condensation is also condensed bit by bit, but because of human control, its condensation speed is much faster than natural condensation, which gives people the impression of instant condensation. As he said, he injected a stream of chakra that had been transformed into ice properties into the water ball. In the surprised eyes of Meditarumi, the water ball began to freeze from bottom to top, bit by bit. She knew that Qishuang had deliberately controlled the speed of water condensation to show her. During this condensation process, ice and water just happened to coexist. Qishuang suddenly curbed the effect of ice attribute chakra and stopped the condensation process and said, based on this point, I can arbitrarily create the state of water containing ice or ice containing water. I killed Orochimaru once before, using a killing move that included this technique. Huh. Hearing this, Meditarumi was shocked and said in astonishment, when did you kill Orochimaru? Qishuang rolled her eyes at her and asked again, you should have seen when Orochimaru got a new body out of his mouth before. Yeah. The little girl nodded repeatedly like a chicken pecking at rice. Whenever she thought of the appearance of Orochimaru getting a wet and slippery new body out of his mouth, she was so scared that her hair stood on end and goosebumps appeared all over her body. It was the first time she had seen such a weird and disgusting technique. Qishuang sighed and continued, that is Orochimaru's unique body substitution technique. It can be like a snake shedding its skin, using its outer body as a shell to shed a new body from the inside, thereby resisting most physical damage. As long as his chakra is not exhausted, he can use it without limit, and ordinary methods can't kill him at all. In a sense, every time Orochimaru sheds a new body, it means that he has been killed once. If he hadn't been so arrogant and insisted on taking my move, there would have been no scene you saw. As he said that, he looked back at the little girl solemnly and warned her, if you meet Orochimaru in the future, you must be careful of his body substitution technique. That guy is really not that easy to kill. Don't worry. Meditarumi waved her hand and said nonchalantly, my dissolution can dissolve him into nothing but bones. Let's see how he can dodge with the body substitution. Hearing this, Qishuang immediately knocked her on the head. What are you doing? The little girl immediately exploded. Qishuang twitched her lips and said in surprise, you don't think that the transformation speed of his substitute technique is as slow as you see, right? Isn't it? Terumi Medi was stunned for a moment. Of course not. He just showed it off to me. Qishuang rolled her eyes at her again and said, the transformation speed of his substitute is actually very fast. It won't give you the opportunity to slowly corrode and melt him. Is there such a thing? Terumi Medi showed an unbelievable look. She originally thought that she had caught the weakness of Orochimaru's slow transformation speed and could use dissolution to corrode him completely and not give his substitute a chance to transform. It turned out that all this was just her wishful thinking. In short, when you meet Orochimaru in the future, don't think you can kill him casually. Qishuang reminded again. Oh. Helplessly, the little girl could only respond dejectedly. Seeing that she was in a low mood, Nanashi didn't continue to mention Orochimaru and had to change the subject. The reason why I showed you the technique of coexistence of ice and water is to tell you, in addition to integrating multiple nature changes to develop advanced ninjutsu, there is also a development path of specialization. Specialization? Hearing this, Terumi Medi suddenly became interested and perked up again. Yeah. Nanashi nodded, slowed down, and said slowly, in terms of the level of ninjutsu, except for the mysterious yin yang escape technique, the 5 basic escape techniques all seem to be one level lower than the bloodline limit escape technique, and the bloodline limit escape technique is one level lower than the bloodline elimination. That's right. This is also one of the reasons why bloodline limit ninjas always seem to be one level higher than ordinary ninjas. Terumi Medi immediately agreed. Actually, this is not right. Nanashi shook her head. Why? Terumi Medi asked hurriedly. Looking up at the rising sun in the sky, Qishuang sighed and said, what we learned from nature is that the 7 basic chakra property changes are the basic components of nature. And for nature, these 7 elements are indispensable. In essence, there is no difference between the 7 and the bloodline limit change. That we merge 2 property changes is still rooted in the 7 basic property changes. It's just that, because the bloodline limit merged 2 property changes from the beginning, it is more complicated than a single basic property change, and the starting point is higher, so there is an impression that the bloodline limit is higher than ordinary escape techniques. Yes, that's it. Meditarumi listened very carefully and nodded immediately. But, many people have overlooked a very important issue. Qishuang sighed. What's the issue? The little girl asked hurriedly. Qishuang turned around, stared into her eyes, and said seriously, have you exhausted all the changes in the escape technique you know? Can the creations you obtained by changing the nature of chakra really be compared with natural things? Hearing the first half of the sentence, Terumi Medi subconsciously wanted to say that she had mastered all the changes in the escape technique she knew, but when she heard the second half of the sentence, she swallowed the words back. The change of chakra's nature comes from imitating nature. She thought she had completely mastered all the changes of dissolution escape technique, but if she really compared her dissolution escape creation with natural substances, it was still far inferior. It's like a ninja who lost his way in the desert. They can't use their water escape technique to make water to replenish their water. Fake. After all, if they really have mastered all the changes in a certain escape technique, then the things they create will be no different from natural things. Such ninjas are no longer human, but gods of creation. The third update is on the shelves. Humans learn from nature, and the change of chakra's nature should also come from nature. Liu Dao explained the principle of chakra, but at that time, only the mother and son had chakra. There were not so many messy changes in nature. He also did not have so much energy to develop blood limit and various changes in escape techniques. Theoretically, it should have been added gradually by later generations. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 109, Escape Technique, Part 2. Seeing the little girl's hesitation, Qishuang smiled and said, "Fortunately, you are not so arrogant as to say that your own changes in nature can completely replace natural things." Humph. Terumi snorted, turned away angrily, and ignored him. Seeing this, Qishuang was not angry, and continued, "The so-called chakra nature change is nothing more than the process of using chakra to simulate the changes of natural things. But human power has its limits, and we cannot exhaust all the changes in nature. Therefore, our degree of understanding of nature determines the similarity of our simulation of the changes of natural things, that is, the depth of the chakra nature change. This is why the nature change of the same escape technique will be different for different people. Because everyone has a different understanding of nature." Terumi did not say a word, but kicked a small stone away to vent her dissatisfaction. If she still couldn't understand what others said so clearly, then there was really no need to mix. However, the more she agreed with the other party's words, the more she felt that she was shallow and panicked. "But what does this have to do with the specialization you mentioned?" She turned her head and asked. Nanashi smiled slightly and continued, "Nature changes infinitely, so the corresponding chakra properties should also change infinitely. And for ninjutsu, the two basic elements that constitute ninjutsu are the changes in the nature and form of chakra. You only need to improve these two elements arbitrarily to increase the power of ninjutsu. The level of ninjutsu can naturally be raised invisibly. The so-called specialization is to dig deep into the infinite changes in nature, improve the limited changes in the nature of your own chakra, and then improve the level of ninjutsu. By then, it is not impossible to surpass the bloodline limit and bloodline elimination with ordinary escape techniques, and be comparable to the bloodline net." Terumi Mei, who had been listening with great interest, frowned involuntarily after hearing the last sentence, and sneered unceremoniously, hey, aren't you afraid that the wind will flick your tongue? I admit that what you said about specialization can increase the power of ninjutsu, but if you say that it can make ordinary escape techniques surpass bloodline elimination, this is a bit too much." The trace of Noki's dust release was still deeply imprinted in her heart. No matter what, she couldn't believe that ordinary escape techniques could reach that level of destructive power. Just like what Nanashi had said to her before, the possibility of integrating more than 3 types of nature changes and surpassing the ninjutsu eliminated by bloodline was only theoretically possible. It was too incredible to really realize it. In her opinion, the path of specialization, which could make ordinary escape techniques reach the level of bloodline limit, was enough. Nanashi didn't argue, but smiled and asked, "You should have seen that Noki could fly before. Then do you know what specific means he used to fly?" Terumi held her chin and thought for a while, then slowly said, "I remember. It seems to be called light and heavy rock technique, which achieves the purpose of flying by reducing one's own weight." Although she was born in the Hidden Mist village and was not a hidden mist ninja, the third Tsuchikage Noki had been famous for many years, and some of his usual techniques had long been thoroughly understood by the major ninja villages and became public information. Therefore, even in the Hidden Mist village, she still knew a lot of information about him. "You forgot to tell me one thing." Nanashi gave her a joking look and said, "That's an earth escape ninjutsu." "So what? It's an earth escape just like that." Mediterumi replied nonchalantly. "You think too simply." Shaking her head, Qishuang said solemnly, "General earth escape ninjutsu, all of which are used to attack and defend by creating changes in the soil. Therefore, most earth escape ninjutsu give people a heavy feeling, which is very similar to the soil in nature. On the other hand, Anoka's earth escape reduces the weight and presents the opposite lightness. Don't you think that this is incompatible with the general earth escape ninjutsu?" "That's right." Mediterumi pinched her chin and said with a look of sudden realization that earth escape ninjutsu doesn't look like earth escape at all. That is the result of specialization that surpasses ordinary escape techniques. Qishuang sighed and said, "Anoka's earth escape has reached a deeper level, breaking away from the inherent form, and can be completely comparable to the bloodline limit ninjutsu." Inherent form? Mediterumi was extremely surprised because she heard another extremely unfamiliar word. HMM. Qishuang nodded and spread out her left palm again. The chakra was transformed by the nature of ice and condensed into an ice bead in the palm of her palm. Then, under the puzzled gaze of Terumi Mei, the ice bead quickly changed its form. It turned into an ice cone, an ice bowl, and an ice blade, constantly changing back and forth in many forms. The so-called chakra form change is just like that. Looking at the changing ice in her hand, Qishuang continued, "As long as you master the basic property changes, I only need to change the ice into an ice blade, that is the ice blade technique, into an ice cone, that is the ice cone technique. But the essence of these ninjutsu is still not much different, it's just a different form, and the seals to control the form are different. The name doesn't really matter. And most people can't see through this. After mastering a certain chakra property change, they learn a lot of meaningless ninjutsu. I think I'm very strong, but I don't know that I just barely mastered the basics of chakra property changes." Mediterumi nodded repeatedly after hearing this. This is just like her dissolution. Because of the characteristics of dissolution itself, she can change the form of dissolution mucus at will, but for her, whether it turns into a sword, a spear, a sword, a halberd, or a triangle, square, or circle, it doesn't make much sense. Just get the dissolution mucus on the opponent, and then you can decide the outcome. That's why she didn't turn the slime into various fancy forms. She really didn't want to spend that extra energy on something meaningless. Spreading the controlled chakra and throwing away the ice in her hand, Qishuang continued, "Unless it's a form like mine where ice and water coexist, it can play a unique role. Otherwise, the general change of chakra form doesn't make much sense. The fundamental to improving escape techniques still lies in the change of chakra properties. Like the light and heavy rock technique used by Anoki for flying, giving full play to the unique changes in chakra properties is the right way to improve the power of escape techniques. In a sense, whether it's specialization or fusion, these two ways to improve escape techniques are to achieve the purpose of improvement by complicating the changes in the properties of escape techniques. However, fusion does not require digging deep into the deeper changes in the properties of chakra. It only needs to combine the existing different changes to get an improvement. Compared to the specialization path, this is more like a shortcut. The fourth update is on the shelves. There is also Yagura's water escape water mirror technique, which directly copies the opponent's state for a moment to counterattack. I don't know the limit of what he can copy, but the copy can be comparable to Naruto's Ninetales mode, which is enough to show that the level of that ninjutsu far exceeds the bloodline limit, and it is possible to reach the bloodline elimination level. If it reaches the bloodline elimination level, it is possible to copy the instantaneous dust release. Of course, this is just my personal opinion. Kishimoto did not have such a setting. Everyone just take a look at it. Don't take it too seriously. Chapter 110, Unwilling, Part 1. A shortcut? Hearing this, Mediterumi was thoughtful. Everything in the world has two sides. The shortcut of fusion is certainly more convenient than specialization, but it also means that the attempter must take more risks. Combining chakras of different properties will inevitably cause a conflict in the properties of the chakras, causing backlash damage. The more chakra properties are fused, the more dangerous it will be for the attempter. Seeing that they were getting closer and closer to the new camp, Terumi turned around, smiled at Qishuang and suggested, "Why don't we have a competition? Let's see whether your specialization is stronger or my fusion is better. Of course, if I can't fusion, then there's nothing to compete with." Hearing this, Qishuang frowned and asked puzzledly, "Are you still determined to try fusion?" "Yeah." Terumi rushed ahead of him in a few steps, looked back and smiled. "I've always wanted to compete with you, but I've never found a suitable opportunity. Let's compete in this. No time limit, until the other party is convinced." Whether it is her fusion or Qishuang's specialization, the results can't be seen in a short time, so she did not add a time limit. Qishuang sighed lightly and said, "The path of fusion can be accomplished in one fell swoop, as long as you find the right opportunity. It seems very convenient, but this opportunity is hard to come by, and you may never encounter it in your lifetime." Terumi smiled contemptuously and countered unceremoniously, "Although your path of specialization seems to have no risks, you only need to keep researching and accumulating. But how big the gap between bloodline limit and bloodline elimination is, you should know better than me. Maybe, you will never be able to raise your bloodline limit to that level in your lifetime." Seeing that she had made up her mind, Qishuang had nothing to say, so he could only shake his head and quickly catch up, rushing to the location where the Iwagakure troops were stationed. When he entered the camp, he saw countless Iwagakure ninjas lying in the corners, and many of them even fell asleep with food in their mouths, and those who had not yet fallen asleep were also in a daze. The arrival of reinforcement finally allowed them to have a good rest. As for the Iwagakure ninjas running around and setting up camp, they should be the new forces brought by Noki. At this moment, only these newcomers have the energy to do these things. Seeing them like this, I feel so sleepy too. Pointing at the sleeping rock ninjas, Terumi yawned, then turned to Qishuang and said, "Hurry up and find the captain. Let's have a good sleep too." The crisis was over, and there were allies to take care of them, and sleepiness came over her. Qishuang forced herself to cheer up and asked the little girl, "Don't you need to find a medical ninja to check your injuries first? It's okay." Terumi waved her hands repeatedly and said nonchalantly, "They are just minor injuries. I'll have time to sleep first and get up to find someone to treat them. Besides, the battle just ended and there are a lot of wounded. How can those medical ninjas take care of my minor injuries? Let's get enough sleep first." Hearing this, Qishuang nodded and said helplessly, "That's true. They really can't take care of patients with minor injuries like you." Soon, the two found the blue leader near the medical tent. The three of them worked together to set up a tent and then fell asleep in exhaustion. As for Zabuza, King threw him to the medical ninjas of Iwagakure. With them taking care of him, nothing would go wrong. On the other side, after getting rid of the entanglement of Tsunagakure, Konoha's troops settled down on the edge of the land of grass. Although Konoha's overall condition was much better than that of Iwagakure, they were also extremely exhausted after 3 rounds of bloody battles in one night. Facing the well-prepared Tsunagakure, they had no choice but to avoid their sharp edge. The Tsunagakure also knew what to do and did not cause trouble. After forcing back Konoha, they also quietly settled down on the edge of the land of grass. Kazekage Rasa was happily waiting for the arrival of the 3-party negotiations. The war should stop. "Where's Ming?" After waking up, Qishuang found that there were only him and the team leader King in the tent, and couldn't help but ask. She went to find a medical ninja to treat her injuries. King sat aside, holding a document, and replied without raising his head while reading it. But his face didn't look good. What he held in his hand was nothing else but the battle damage report of the Kirigakure troops counted by his subordinates. After some statistics, there were less than 200 people left in their Kirigakure army. The casualties were as high as 80%. With such tragic casualties, it would be strange if he could look good going to treat the wounds. Qishuang thought for a moment, then quickly got up and said to the leader, "Captain, I will also treat the wounds on my body." The battle last night was too fierce. Even for a cautious person like him, he was left with many wounds. Although it was not a serious injury, after waking up, the excitement in the battle dissipated, and he suddenly felt pain all over his body. It would be better to find a medical ninja to treat it. After all, he is not a masochist. Go. King waved his hand, not caring at all, still staring at the report, with a lot on his mind. Not long after Qishuang left, a rock ninja walked into their team's rest tent. Captain King, Lord Tsuchikage invites you. The rock ninja said to the masked young man neither servilely nor arrogantly. That Tsuchikage wants to see me? King looked away from the report and looked at the visitor in surprise. Yes. The rock ninja nodded expressionlessly. Okay. King immediately stood up, folded the report a few times, and then put it in his pocket, and said to the visitor, let's go. Following the rock ninja, King soon came to a large tent in the middle of the camp. In front of the tent, and rock ninja opened the tent door and gestured. Captain King, that Tsuchikage has been waiting for you inside for a long time. King did not say a word, but walked in silently. Are you the captain of this Kirigakure enforcement force? An old man with white hair and beard asked him behind a simple desk. That was the third Tsuchikage Inoki. King did not dare to neglect him, and immediately saluted and said, hello, Lord Tsuchikage. I'm the captain of this Kirigakure army, King. Inoki put his hands on the desk, shielding his face, and said to him very calmly, I called you here to tell you something. We are going to negotiate with Konoha and ceasefire. Hearing this, King did not say a word. He knew clearly that in the current situation, the main force of Iwagakure was almost crippled, and the Land of Earth only had the power to protect itself. There was indeed no need and confidence to continue the war. As soon as the voice changed, Inoki suddenly said seriously, negotiations are helpless, but I'm still unwilling to give up, and want to try again. The 5th update is on the shelves. The new book investment group is short of people. Please, give me some help. Chapter 111, Reluctant, Part 2. Hearing this, King's heart tightened, and he subconsciously asked, does the Lord have any plans? Plan? The old man behind the desk sneered a few times, and then said, you have also seen this battle. The Iwagakure troops suffered heavy losses, and could barely maintain the defense of the Land of Earth. But that young boy, Eluosha, is not motivated at all, and he only wants to stop the war. Look, I haven't even sat down for a while, and even the armistice agreement has been handed over. As he said this, Inoki casually flipped the desk and threw a document in front of the masked young man. King slowly picked it up, turned to the first page, and clearly saw the words truce written at the top. At the bottom was a person's autograph, Eluosha. He knew that it was the 4th generation Kazakage who had just taken office in the Sand Village. The situation is over. Even if I have a brilliant plan, I can't turn the tide. The old man sighed. Then, sir, what do you mean by calling me here? King asked tentatively, closing the document and carefully putting it back on the desk. Inoki stared into his eyes and said solemnly, the situation on the western battlefield is like this. Negotiation is the general trend. However, it will take some time to truly reach an armistice agreement. As long as you can make a breakthrough on the battlefield in Kirigakure before the armistice agreement is completely finalized, let me see the hope of victory. Presumably, that young boy Eluosha would not mind terminating the negotiations and taking a piece of meat from the Fire Country. You understand what I mean? King nodded. The other party had already made it so clear. How could he not understand that this meant that he was asked to take the letter back and let Kirigakure manufacture fighter planes? Then, he smiled bitterly and said, it's just that Konoha has already taken control of the overall situation on the battlefield here, and our people have been exposed. I'm afraid it will be difficult to leave safely. Don't worry about this. I have prepared a retreat for you. Inoki waved his hand and slowly floated up from the chair. A 3-inch tall old man floated out from behind the desk. He said confidently, I have issued a temporary customs clearance document for you. You only need to take a detour from the Land of Earth and pass through the Land of Taki. Then you can avoid the battlefield of the Land of Grass and avoid Konoha's obstruction. After that, he took out another document from his arms and handed it to the young man with the eye mask. This old guy really thinks about it in detail. king took the document silently, and his heart was full of emotion. Then, he asked carefully, Lord Tsuchikage, our reinforcement have suffered heavy losses. Can I take them all back? Anoki turned around and floated towards a chair, waved his hand, and said nonchalantly, you can do it yourself. He had already seen the casualty statistics of this battle, and naturally knew that there were less than 200 people left in the Kirigakure army. Such a small number of people is insignificant compared to the three parties' combined forces of more than 10,000 people. It is meaningless to force the other party to stay. Therefore, he did not care about the stay of the Kirigakure people. Thank you, Lord Tsuchikage. King suppressed his secret joy, saluted respectfully, and then slowly left the big tent. After all, this is not Kirigakure's territory, and they, the Kirigakure ninja, are not liked by the rock ninja, so their life is very difficult. Now that he can finally leave this damn place, how can he not be happy? Unfortunately, many people in the army were seriously injured and needed time to recuperate, so he could not lead them back immediately and had to endure 3 more days in the camp of Iwagakure. During these 3 days, the survivors slowly told the later ones about the bloody battle that night. Of course, what people talked about the most were still those masters who were rampant on the battlefield, fighting 10 or even 100 at a time. After all, no one wanted to hear the story of the weak being slaughtered in various ways. Those strong ones were like the bright stars on the battlefield. Each of them was dazzling. In addition to the famous Konoha-Sanin, the most talked about in the Iwagakure camp was Namikaze Minato, who reproduced the Flying Thunder God technique. He was a rising star. With the Flying Thunder God technique, he appeared and disappeared on the battlefield, and no one could stop him. With his golden hair, he was like a golden stream of light shuttling across the battlefield. Some even broke the news that it was Minato Namikaze who led his men to launch a surprise attack from behind and almost cut off the logistic supply line of Iwagakure by himself, which led to the complete defeat of Iwagakure on the front battlefield. With such a record and such a speed, some people called him the Golden Flash. Everyone recognized that he was a master who was no less than the 3 ninjas of Konoha. Even his subordinate, Hatake Kakashi, who had a Sharingan, attracted a lot of attention. He was a young genius. Although he was far inferior to his teacher, he was also a young leader with a bright future. It was a pity that they were all from Konoha, which made the Iwagakure very sorry. In a dark cave somewhere, a little boy wrapped in bandages struggled desperately on a stone bed, like a white caterpillar, trying hard to get down to the ground. Unfortunately, he was wrapped in bandages all over his body, and he had suffered fatal injuries, so he couldn't use any strength at all. Although he was sweating profusely, he still couldn't get down from the bed. Stop struggling. Save some strength. On the stone seat not far away, an old man with a emaciated look glanced at the little boy and said, "Your body has not fully recovered yet. If you continue to struggle like this, you will never see that person again." Hearing this, the little boy turned his head with difficulty and said to the old man firmly, "Kakashi and Lin are waiting for me. I must go back." Looking at his determined face, the old man spit out 2 words coldly. Boring. The little boy was not angry either. He stared at the old man with the red eyes, exposed outside the gauze, and said firmly, "Maybe you have seen through everything, but for me, Lin is the meaning of my life. As long as I can be with her, it's enough." After saying that, he suddenly felt a warm current flowing through his heart, as if he had strength all over his body. He kicked his feet and fell to the ground. It's a pity that, although he struggled to flip off the stone bed, he was seriously injured and had not recovered. He suddenly fell to the ground and his body couldn't stand the impact. For a moment, the pain made him cry uncontrollably, and the strength he had just shown was gone, and he suddenly looked a little more ridiculous. The old man on the stone seat shook his head, and then he slowly stood up with the handle of a sickle at hand, and walked slowly to another stone chamber. In the stone chamber, a plant like a pitcher plant slowly grew out of the ground, and its serrated leaves opened, revealing a half black and half white person inside. "Have you found out who the person called Kakashi and Lin are?" the old man asked softly, leaning on the handle of the sickle. The 6th update is now online. I know some people will say that the time when you appeared is wrong, so I will open a separate chapter to explain it later. Yellow flash doesn't sound good, and the meaning of yellow in Japanese and Chinese is different. so I changed it to Gold Flash. Chapter 112 Underground. The half black and half white weirdo said cheerfully with the white half of his face. The two named Kakashi and Lin are the teammates of the boy outside. His other eye is in the companion named Kakashi. The two should have a good relationship, otherwise he would not have exchanged his eye for Kakashi. What about the other one? The old man asked expressionlessly. The other one. The white half of the weirdo's face had not finished speaking when his black half of the face snatched it away. They were black and white, but each had its own independent personality. I heard a completely different hoarse voice from the other half. The other one is a lovely girl, probably the sweetheart of the boy outside. After saying that, he even glanced outside the stone chamber in a signal. The boy who was tied up like a caterpillar was trying to crawl out while crying. Looking at the other side's grinning and tearful appearance, it was estimated that he must have pulled the wound when crawling and it hurt so much. The love in his heart? No wonder he keeps clamoring to go out. The old man suddenly realized. Then, he said to the black and white weirdo, since he has love in his heart, it couldn't be better. You go and prepare, let him see the real appearance of this world. Let him understand that this world is too fragile. So-called friendship and love are difficult to last forever. We need to create an eternal world to obtain eternal happiness. Let him have a great enlightenment and use it for me. Hearing this, the black and white weirdo was puzzled and said, what do you want him to do? The old man turned his head and glanced at the little boy lying on the ground outside the stone room, panting, and whispered, his physique is compatible with Hashirama cells, and he can also become the carrier of those eyes in the future. Haven't you already chosen the kid from the rain country as the carrier of the eyes? The white half of the weirdo's face asked curiously. Shut up, idiot. Upon hearing this, his black half face immediately scolded, and then said, it took us a long time to find a guy who can carry the pair of eyes. If we can have another one as a backup, what's wrong with that? But, there is only one pair of eyes? The white half face asked calmly. The old man ignored him, and just instructed the black half face. The kid outside can not only be a backup carrier of the pair of eyes, but also a guide for the kid from the rain country. Let the kid take the right path. The black half face thought for a while and said slowly, then, what do you mean? Let the kid outside replace my original job, and I will follow the kid as a supervisor, to ensure the completion of the task. Having one more hand prepared, you can hide in the dark, which is always not a bad thing. The old man leaned on the handle of the sickle and said calmly, that's true. The black and white weirdo nodded. He was not good at fighting. If he walked to the front, to guide the man from the rain country, he would inevitably be overwhelmed when dealing with troubles. But if he assigned his task to the Uchiha kid outside, it would be much easier. Because the kid outside has already awakened the Sharingan. Just train him well, and then cooperate with the cells of the first Hokage, Senju Hashirama. He will be a top fighter. Compared with him, the kid is more suitable to walk to the front, to guide the man from the rain country. In this case, I have a plan, or we can try it. The black half face said to the old man. Speak. The old man still leaned on the handle of the sickle, standing still. The black half face whispered, I found that the little girl named Lin has a good compatibility with the chakra of the tailed beast. We can. On the other side, in the camp of Iwagakure, after all the personnel had rested and treated, King led everyone on the journey back. Because they had the documents prepared by Anoki to pass the customs, the Mist Ninjas had no obstacles in the land of earth and soon bypassed the battlefield blockade of the land of grass. Borrowing the road from the countries on the edge of the land of fire, they headed east to the mainland. As for whether those small countries agreed to borrow the road, it was not their concern at all. After all, the only forces that were qualified to stop them, the Mist Ninja, were those that were also one of the 5 major villages. After a day's trek, the Mist Ninjas finally arrived at the eastern coast of the mainland. Sure enough, I'm more accustomed to the breath of the sea. Looking at the endless blue sea, Meditarumi let out a long breath. There are many islands in the land of water, so she was born in the land of water and often accompanied by the sea. She was not used to being suddenly transferred to the battlefield in the west. Fortunately, they are back. Seeing that the little girl fell behind, Qishuang stopped and shouted, hurry up and catch up. If we go south for another hour, we will almost be back to the hidden mist camp. Got it. The joy that she had accumulated with great difficulty was destroyed by him again, and Meitarumi was obviously a little unhappy. Seeing that the other Miss Ninjas were getting farther and farther away, she had no choice but to speed up and catch up. On the other side, because the overall situation on the western battlefield had been decided, Iwagakure only had the strength to protect itself, and Sand Village had no intention of fighting again. Konoha was happy to withdraw some troops and transfer them to the eastern battlefield. Only the troops on the western battlefield were maintained at a level similar to that of the other two sides. They were ready to concentrate on defeating the Kirigakure troops on the eastern battlefield and completely settle the war. Hey, Kakashi. Among the troops transferred to the eastern battlefield by Konoha, a little girl with purple stripes on her face called out to the silver-haired masked boy who was traveling with her. The little boy slowed down his pace and turned back to ask, "What do you want, Lin? Why don't you see Minato, teacher?" The little girl called Lin asked in surprise. "Oh, you want to ask this?" The little boy looked suddenly enlightened and said slowly, "I heard that Kirigakure is ready to make a move, and the higher-ups sent teachers to take people over to guard against it. So that's how it is." A hint of disappointment flashed across the little girl's face. Seeing her slightly worried, Kakashi hurriedly comforted her. "Don't worry, Lin. I will definitely protect you. I swear with my life and this eye." As he said that, he lifted the ninja forehead guard covering his left eye, revealing a red eye with two black magatama underneath. It was a gift from his former friend. "Well, I believe you." It seemed that the little boy's comfort worked. Lin nodded heavily and smiled brightly again. However, neither of them noticed that behind a tree trunk on the side of the road, a half black and half white face slowly emerged. Someone had already stared at them. King, who returned to the Kirigakure camp, immediately conveyed Inoki's idea. However, he was not optimistic about Inoki's expectations, because he knew clearly that the Kirigakure village's losses in this war were not much less than those of the Iwagakure village. Especially the near annihilation of the 7 ninja swordsmen made the Kirigakure village even worse. Under such circumstances, it would be difficult for them to create a warplane that could change the situation from the eastern battlefield. Leaders don't need to do things themselves. If Madara has to do everything himself, what is the point of Black Zetsu and White Zetsu? Chapter 113. Intention. The 3 commanders of Kirigakure did not make a rash decision regarding the message from Iwagakure. They immediately sent a message back to Kirigakure. In Kirigakure, a meeting was held in the meeting hall. The 3rd Mizukage sat quietly at the main seat at the end of the round table, listening patiently to the arguments of the people below. Someone kept complaining, "Those guys from Iwagakure are so useless. They can't even protect their own logistics. They were destroyed by a young boy." The young boy he was talking about was naturally the Konoha ninja who became famous in the battle against Iwagakure, known as the Golden Flash, Minato Namikaze. As for the subordinates of Minato Namikaze who participated in the operation to destroy the logistics supply, he selectively ignored them, because according to their intelligence feedback, Minato Namikaze only brought a small team to Kannabi Bridge at that time. Including himself, there were only 4 people in total, including a medical ninja and a poor guy who died early. The real effective fighting force is actually only Minato Namikaze and a kid named Kakashi. Although the kid named Kakashi has some talent, he is too young after all. In addition, compared with Minato Namikaze, there is a huge gap between them. The Battle of Kannabi Bridge can be said to be Minato Namikaze's personal show. A man who almost cut off the logistical supply line of Iwagakure by himself. You can't say that. A man nearby shook his head and said, "That kid has reproduced the Flying Thunder God technique of the 2nd Hokage. In terms of speed alone, no one can catch up with him. Plus the time and space characteristics of the Flying Thunder God technique, it can ignore obstacles and move through time and space. No one can stop him at all. It's understandable that Iwagakure's logistics were cut off by such a powerful ninja." Then, another person stood up and said, "The situation on the western battlefield is a foregone conclusion. Konoha should soon mobilize troops to the eastern battlefield. By then, the casualties on the front will only get bigger and bigger, and our losses in this war have been great enough. We can't fight anymore. I think we should negotiate with Konoha and choose a ceasefire. It seems that he is in favor of peace." "No. After hearing his words, someone immediately stood up and objected, if we just negotiate a ceasefire, how can we make up for our previous losses? Will the blood of our compatriots on the front line not be shed in vain? We must take down Konoha. Divide up the land of fire. The more excited he was, the more he punched down. At this moment, the dull sound of the fist hitting the desk even overwhelmed the noise of the crowd. Everyone felt a firm will to fight from the dull sound. Unfortunately, not everyone agreed to continue fighting. After a short silence, the hall fell into a chaotic quarrel again. Dismissed. The man wearing a blue hat with the word water on it slowly stood up, and after saying this expressionlessly, he left the meeting room without looking back. As the Mizukage, he had to consider the overall situation. If he chose to negotiate peace, all the previous losses would be in vain. If he chose to fight again, facing the concentrated power of Konoha, Kirigakure would suffer even greater losses. Of course, if Kirigakure can win the battle, it will naturally be compensated by the Land of Fire. In this case, he would of course choose to fight again. It's just that the pro-war party has no substance and has been arguing with the pro-peace faction. They just want to continue fighting, but they haven't come up with a specific action plan. Even though he has already leaned towards the pro-war faction, he still can't make a conclusion. Therefore, instead of listening to them arguing with each other, it's better to choose to adjourn the meeting and let everyone go back and think about it. He hopes to see a satisfactory battle plan next time. In this way, the pro-war faction and the pro-peace faction in Kirigakure village have been arguing for 3 days, and the third Mizukage still hasn't gotten a satisfactory answer. In front, because Konoha freed up its hands in the west and concentrated on dealing with the battlefield in the east, the pressure on the Kirigakure troops increased, and casualties increased day by day. In addition, the news that the western battlefield was preparing to cease fire came, and the mood of war weariness began to spread in the Kirigakure troops. This war has been going on for long enough. The Kirigakure ninjas are eager to stop the war and return to the Land of Water. On the other side, Konoha ninjas who had just experienced a fierce battle on the battlefield, rushed into the grove, panting, and lay down under a big tree to rest. One person said, this group of mist ninjas is really difficult to deal with. Under the same strength, they fought 3 against 5 without losing, and they also took our 3 companions to die together. It's really amazing. Another person said, I heard that in their previous ninja graduation exams, they had to kill one of their classmates to graduate. This training method is to erase people's emotions and turn them into special killing machines. Therefore, when fighting, they are more cold-blooded and more ferocious than ordinary people, and their combat effectiveness is increased by 3 points. It's just that I heard that an accident happened a few years ago, so this exam rule of killing people to graduate was stopped. What accident? The first person asked curiously. At this moment, a black and white monster wrapped in serrated leaves slowly emerged from the tree trunk behind him. The accident is, you are going to die. This hoarse voice that came out of nowhere scared both of them. The second person turned his head and saw a half black and half white monster growing on the tree trunk. Before his companion could react, the weirdo grabbed the back of his head and chin from behind. Let him go. The second man dragged his tired body and immediately stabbed the black and white weirdo with a kunai. Unfortunately, he was still a step too late. The black and white weirdo pulled his hands outward, and with a crisp sound, his companion's neck was broken, and he fell to the ground with a distorted expression. We can't kill this one. We have to keep one. Looking at the stabbing Konoha ninja, the black half of the face whispered, I know. The white half of the face replied excitedly. Then, the black and white weirdo patted the tree trunk lightly with his white arm, and a wooden root suddenly grew out of the trunk, like a snake, and immediately wrapped the stabbing Konoha ninja tightly. Completely blocked the opponent's attack. Would release. Seeing the wooden restraints on his body, the Konoha ninja immediately recognized that it was the famous wood release ninjutsu of the first generation Hokage. Who are you? Why do you know the first generation's wood release ninjutsu? The man asked in horror. Go to hell and ask. With a playful smile, the black and white weirdo squeezed out from the tree trunk, slowly walked up to him, and covered the terrified face with his white palm. Feeling the chakra in his body, like a flood bursting through a dam, he involuntarily rushed to that palm, and the man from Konoha was terrified. You can actually absorb chakra. Chapter 114 Infiltration, Part 1. You might as well guess what else I can do, Whiteface said with a playful smile. Seeing that his white half was still thinking about playing, Blackface showed a hint of impatience, stretched out his other black palm, and twisted the neck of the Konoha ninja. Seeing this, Whiteface stopped absorbing chakra, moved the white hand away from the man's face, and while removing the restraints of wood release, he muttered, "Black Zetsu, what are you doing? I finally got out once, and I haven't had enough fun yet." Without the support of the wood restraints, the Konoha ninja with a broken neck immediately fell to the ground. "That's about it." Blackface showed a helpless look and said, "This is a battlefield, and we may run into people from Konoha and Kirigakure at any time. Now, it's not the time to expose us. Let's finish the job quickly and report back, White Zetsu." Black Zetsu was also quite helpless about his white half. The two of them are collectively called Zetsu. Although they are symbiotic, it is not innate, but acquired artificially. Due to some special reasons, White Zetsu did not have a perfect personality when he was created. His thinking ability is far inferior to that of normal people. But it is precisely because of this that White Zetsu, who has personality defects, is more likely to be led by him. Otherwise, he would never want to coexist with such an idiot. Okay. White Zetsu helplessly let go of the control of his half body. Then, Black Zetsu took the lead in the overall action and immediately made a seal. Transform. The jagged leaves on both sides of his body disappeared, and the muscles and skin of his whole body seemed to be wriggling, and his half black and half white body began to change. When the change stopped, he had turned into a Konoha ninja. It was the second person he killed. This is the special ability of White Zetsu, which can absorb other people's chakra, and then use those chakras as the source to transform into the appearance of the target whose chakra was absorbed. Because the chakra used in this transformation technique comes from the target of the transformation, after the transformation, he can obtain the same chakra aura as the other party. As long as he does not reveal his flaws, it is almost impossible for outsiders to see through it. It is an excellent way to sneak in and out. Then, he looked at the original owner of the face on the ground and pressed his palm on the tree trunk next to him, using the chakra of White Zetsu to induce the tree to grow. 4 or 5 roots broke out of the ground and immediately dragged the Konoha ninja into the ground. The ground returned to its original state again, as if nothing had happened. Only under the big tree, the body of the first Konoha ninja who died was still left, as if telling the story of the assassination just now. Zetsu, who had changed into a new image, looked at the direction of the Konoha camp, and then a smug smile appeared on the corner of his mouth, and then he walked away and disappeared into the forest. Not long after, a huge camp appeared in front of him. Without much effort, he easily blended in. In the Konoha camp, a little girl with short hair and purple facial lines was treating the wound of another silver-haired boy. "Why are you always so stubborn, Kakashi?" The little girl frowned and scolded him while bandaging him. The little boy raised his head, looked into her eyes, and said solemnly, "Obito's last wish is that I protect you well. Then I will do my best to protect you, Lin." Seeing Kakashi's determined eyes, the little girl tied the last knot on the bandage, bit her lip and said, but if even you die, then what should I do?" Before she finished speaking, tears rolled down her face, and she was already sobbing. "Lin, don't worry, I will never die. I promised Obito that I would protect you forever," Kakashi said solemnly again. Seeing that he still looked unwavering, Lin wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes and had to change the subject. "The medicine for the wound has been used up. I'll go get some more. You wait for me to come back." "Okay." Kakashi nodded, watched the little girl open the tent door, and slowly left. In the Konoha camp, Zetsu, who had become a Konoha ninja, was wandering around. He was looking for someone. However, there are thousands of people in this camp, and it is not easy to find a specific target. It is like looking for a needle in a haystack. He has been wandering around the camp for nearly 2 hours, checking nearly 100 tents, but still hasn't found the target. This made him a little discouraged. Just as he was sitting aside to rest his feet, a girl's figure appeared in the corner of his eye. He turned his head subconsciously and saw that the person was the target he was looking for. "Finally found you." With a strange smile on his face, Ju quietly followed. Not long after, He appeared at the exit of the Konoha camp carrying a black bag. "What's in your bag?" A Konoha ninja guarding the exit stopped him and pointed at the bag on his shoulder and asked. He covered his mouth and nose with one hand and carried the bag with the other hand and replied, "This is the body of a little girl. She is infected with a terrible virus. In order to prevent everyone from being infected, the people in the medical department asked me to take it out and destroy it quickly. If you are not afraid of the risk of infection, open it and have a look." Hearing this, the Konoha ninja who was reaching for the bag withdrew his hand, as if he was stung by a poisonous scorpion, and took 2 steps back, covering his mouth and nose, and said, "Hurry up. Hurry up. Don't waste time here." That's right. Another Konoha guard next to him also echoed, "I don't want to be infected with some inexplicable virus. Then I will really go out." Zetsu carried the bag and jokingly confirmed with the 2 again. The 2 did not answer and took 2 steps back, waving their hands repeatedly, indicating that he should leave quickly. Then, he carried the bag and swaggered out of the Konoha camp. In the tent, Kakashi waited for a long time, but Lin did not return, and he could not help but feel anxious. Could it be that he ran into some trouble? He thought to himself, and then he left the tent to look for Lin's whereabouts. Unfortunately, he searched every corner of the camp, but he didn't see Lin. He asked the guards at the entrance and exit of the camp, but they didn't see Lin go out. Even if he used the psychic ninja dog, he couldn't smell Lin's scent. One day, Lin disappeared from the Konoha camp, as if she had never appeared. On the other side, after Zetsu caught a tired Miss Ninja who was alone, he killed him with the same method, and he changed into the other's appearance again. Then he carried the bag and quietly headed towards the Miss camp. The bag contained nothing else but Lin, Kakashi's partner, who was knocked out by him secretly. Little Obito, the show is about to begin. He looked back into the distance with a smug smile on his face. In fact, this chapter should be called Black Zetsu in Action. Although his stealth skills are very good, and he doesn't need to disguise himself to sneak into the Konoha camp, it is still more convenient to find someone in secret than to find someone openly. Transformation is also useful. As for the sneak attack on Yuan Yelin, it is enough to find an empty corner and hit her with a club, so I'm too lazy to write it. Chapter 115 Infiltration, Part 2. Soon, Zetsu arrived at the entrance of the Kirigakure camp carrying the bag. A Kirigakure guard stopped him and asked with a frown, "What's in your bag? What a bunch of annoying guys." After muttering helplessly in his heart, Zetsu, who had transformed into a Kirigakure, gently put down the bag on his shoulder. Then, under the curious eyes of the surrounding guards, he slowly opened it. Inside, a sleeping little girl wearing a Konoha forehead protector appeared. Pointing at the little girl, he proudly showed off to the guards, "This is a little girl I just caught outside. How about it? Is she cute?" Hearing this, the Kirigakure guard who stopped him slowly stepped back, looked at him with great disdain, and said, "You are really a disgusting guy. Okay, take it in quickly, don't block this entrance." After that, the man waved his hands again and again, sending him away quickly. Then, Zetsu closed the bag again, carrying the unconscious little girl, and swaggering into the Kirigakure camp. After hiding the little guy in a secret place, he immediately found the command tent of Kirigakure. However, he did not rush in, but hid in the dark, carefully observing the people in and out of the command tent. He was waiting for an opportunity. As night fell, the 3 Kirigakure commanders in the tent rubbed their shoulders and legs, their faces full of fatigue. In the past few days, the intensity of Konoha's attack and harassment has increased a lot. They are always paying attention to the battle situation to prevent others from taking advantage of them. The increase in workload has also caused their bodies to be a little overwhelmed. "It's almost time, let's all go back and rest," one person suggested. "Okay." Someone followed and agreed. Seeing that the 2 people wanted to rest, the third person didn't want to force it anymore, so he had to agree. Then the 3 of them left the command tent one by one and prepared to return to their respective tents to rest. The opportunity has come. Seeing the 3 people come out, Ju, who was hiding in the dark, showed a knowing smile. Then, he walked out of the shadow of the tent and followed immediately. The commander walking at the back soon noticed the Kirigakure ninja following behind. He stopped, turned around and asked, "What do you want to do?" In the dim light, he saw that it was a thin mist ninja with many holes in his clothes that had not been mended in time. It seemed that he had experienced many battles. Hearing this voice, the other two commanders also stopped and looked curiously at the mist ninja who came up. I have a very important piece of information that I want to report to you alone, the man said in a low voice and glanced at the other two commanders. Report alone. The commander frowned slightly. Yes, such important information. I only want to tell you alone, the man said in a low voice, meaningfully, and glanced at the other two again. This. The commander hesitated. At this moment, the other two commanders who could not hear what they were talking about became a little impatient. What are you talking about? One of them shouted loudly and walked over slowly. Then, the other one slowly followed. It seems that you don't want to know my intelligence that can make you a great contribution. Seeing that the commander was still hesitant, Ju shook his head and made a gesture to leave. The commander, who originally held an indifferent attitude, immediately stopped the mist ninja who was about to leave after hearing the word great contribution. Wait a minute. Then, he turned back and said to the two companions who were walking over, I have some private matters to deal with. You two should go back and rest first. After that, he put his arm around the shoulders of Ju's transformed mist ninja and hurried to the other side. Seeing this, the two people who were left there were confused. What's the matter? Why are you so anxious? One person curled his lips and said, who knows? Let's go back and have a good sleep first. It has nothing to do with us anyway. The other person looked at the dark night sky and said nonchalantly, that's true. Then, the two people walked slowly in the direction of the rest tent. On the other side, the commander put his arm around Zetsu's shoulders and quickly rushed to a dark corner, eagerly saying, tell me quickly, what information can help me achieve great success? Zetsu, who had transformed into a mist ninja, glanced around nervously and said solemnly, sir, I caught a little boy from Konoha today. Hearing this, the man was a little disappointed and said impatiently, what use can a little guy have? I don't want to hear this. Zetsu smiled meaningfully and said, sir, don't underestimate that little boy. She has the potential to defeat Konoha. Oh. Hearing that there was a potential to defeat Konoha, the commander immediately became interested. But the excitement only lasted for a moment, and soon he regained his composure and said in surprise, how could a little boy from Konoha have the potential to defeat Konoha? He expressed doubt. Ju smiled and said, that kid has an extraordinary physique. We can do something to her and create a fighter plane to defeat Konoha. Physique? What physique? The commander was still confused. Sir, please follow me and see for yourself. The mist ninja that Ju transformed into did not explain too much. He immediately led the way and took the commander to the place where Lin was hidden. After opening the bag, the commander immediately saw a sleeping little girl with short hair. He looked left and right, but he really couldn't see what was special about the little girl. Feeling that he might have been fooled, he suppressed his anger, said to Zetsu with a dark face and coldly, lying about military intelligence is a capital crime. But the mist ninja smiled seductively and whispered, sir, I didn't lie to you. The physique of this little girl is very compatible with the chakra of the tailed beast. We can make her into a temporary tailed beast Jinkriki, then secretly release her back to Konoha village. What do you think will happen? Hearing this, the commander's face became even darker, and he said, the result is that we gave Konoha a tailed beast for nothing. The mist ninja transformed by Zetsu shook his head and jokingly said, but what if this Jinkriki is a failure? What if she goes berserk on the day she returns to Konoha? Hearing this, the commander's eyes lit up, and he said with joy, the tailed beast that suddenly goes berserk will completely destroy the Konoha village with its internal defenses empty. By then, the morale of the Konoha troops on the front line will drop sharply because of the destruction of Konoha, and they are more likely to collapse directly. We can unite with Sand Village and Rock Village and take over Konoha in one fell swoop. Just as he was happy, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his chest. He looked down and saw that the mist ninja had thrust a kunai into his chest while he was not prepared. He was about to call for help, but someone grabbed his neck and he couldn't say a word. White Zetsu's transformation technique is really useful for assassination. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. we cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 116, Plan. Are you surprised? With a playful smile, Zetsu slowly revealed his true face. Seeing the mist ninja in front of him turned into another half black and half white appearance, the dying commander finally realized that he had been ambushed. Unfortunately, he realized it too late. With a crisp sound, his neck was twisted, and his head drooped down helplessly. Only 2 eyes were left, still staring with unwilling anger. This man is meaningless, and died in an instant. Looking at the corpse thrown on the ground, White Zetsu said frivolously. Stupid, what if he struggles too hard and attracts other people, exposing us? Black Zetsu scolded without hesitation, and carefully glanced around. However, the place where he hid Lin was in a more remote corner of the camp, and there were not many people around. The scene of him just killing the commander should not have been seen by anyone. His search was just to be on the safe side. Then, he used the chakra he had just absorbed from the other party to transform into the appearance of the commander. He summoned a few thick roots from the ground, and after dealing with the body of the unlucky guy, he carried Lin and slowly walked towards the tent where the commanders rested every day. The next morning, he took Lin to the command tent again. Why did you capture such a little guy from Konoha? A commander asked him in surprise. Then, he told him about his plan to make Lin a temporary Jinkriki and then deliberately release her to destroy Konoha. He believed that the Kirigakure, which was in an unfavorable situation, would never give up this life-saving straw that could turn the tables. The other 2 commanders immediately agreed after hearing this. This plan, except for the risk of losing a tailed beast, really couldn't find any major problems. If it really worked, defeating Konoha would be just around the corner. As for how to recycle the tailed beast, that was not within their consideration, so they left it to the people above to worry about. Then, the 3 of them sent a joint letter back to the Kirigakure. The third Mizukage, who was worried about not being able to find a suitable battle plan, was overjoyed when he saw the plan of the 3 people's letter delivery. He immediately summoned the top leaders of the Hidden Mist Village to discuss the specific action plan. The plan is good, but how can we recover the tailed beast? The pro-peace mist ninjas still did not give up and wanted to scrap the plan on the grounds that the tailed beast was difficult to recover. The pro-war mist ninjas, who were excited about this battle plan, immediately lost their temper. The tailed beasts are known as war weapons. Each of them has a terrifying amount of chakra. When used in war, it can easily cause huge damage. The ultimate goal of this plan is to intentionally let the tailed beasts run wild in Konoha village, so as to destroy Konoha in a short period of time. But once the tailed beasts run wild, it will be too difficult to suppress and subdue them. In particular, they are also preparing to throw the tailed beasts to Konoha village. By then, even if they can really destroy Konoha village, it will be difficult to recover the tailed beasts under the siege of many Konoha ninjas. It was really hard to lose a tailed beast that was known as a weapon of war. After a long silence, another mist ninja stood up and said, I remember that there seemed to be ninja tools left by the 6 Paths sage in the hidden cloud village. With the power of those ninja tools, they can suppress and seal the tailed beasts in a very short time. If we borrow ninja tools in the name of a joint attack on Konoha, we can get a way to quickly recover the runaway tailed beasts. The Mizukage sitting in the main seat glanced at the man and said, you should be talking about the amber purifier bottle of the hidden cloud village, right? The 8 tails of the hidden cloud village went berserk several times, and it was the power of the amber purifier bottle that quickly subdued it without causing too much damage. Even though he was in the hidden cloud village, these important information did not escape his ears. But, the amber purifier bottle is a treasure of the hidden cloud village. I'm afraid it will be difficult to borrow it. The Mizukage sighed. Seeing his worried face, another mist ninja stood up and said loudly, Mitsuki, the hidden cloud village has not joined the war against Konoha. It is probably because they want to take advantage of the situation. If we can really use the tailed beasts to destroy Konoha village and create warplanes for everyone, they will definitely be happy. I think they will not be stingy in lending us the amber purifier bottle. Hearing this, everyone below nodded. Even the peace advocates followed suit. Yeah. That's right. That's right. Okay. Seeing that everyone agreed, the Mizukage immediately solemnly instructed an assistant next to him, immediately send someone to send a message to the hidden cloud village, to borrow the amber purifier bottle. Yes. Before he finished speaking, the assistant disappeared in the meeting hall. Soon, the top leaders of the hidden cloud village also received the message from the hidden cloud village asking to borrow the amber purifier bottle. Everyone talked about it, some agreed to lend it, and some disagreed. Finally, the son of the third Reikage, AI, chose to lend the amber bottle against all odds. However, what he agreed to lend was a replica of the amber bottle, which had similar abilities to the amber bottle, but the validity period was only 24 hours, and it could only be used once. This made many dissatisfied Rock Ninja high level officials shut up and stopped obstructing. At the same time, the Cloud Village also decided to launch an offensive, while the Kirigakure used the tailed beast to destroy the Leaf Village, and the front line of Konoha was unstable. In order to seize the greatest strategic fruit, the Rock Ninja high level officials decided to send AI and the current 8 Tails Jinchuriki to the front line, ready to attack at any time. On the other hand, after receiving the reply from the Rock Village, although they were somewhat dissatisfied with the replica amber bottle, the Kirigakure side still chose to accept it. After all, it's better to have it than not. In the Kirigakure's frontline camp, Lin didn't know how long she had been asleep. When she opened her eyes again, she was horrified to find that she was in a strange camp. Looking carefully, she saw several ripple marks in the corner, which were the symbols of the Hidden Mist Village. Obviously, she had fallen into the hands of the Hidden Mist Village. How could this happen? She was so scared that she was at a loss. She wanted to escape from this place desperately, but her hands and feet had been tied up, and she was just a medical ninja, and was not good at fighting. She really didn't know how to get rid of the danger in front of her. Apart from praying, she couldn't think of any way. Kakashi, save me. Save me. At this moment, 3 Hidden Mist ninjas broke into the tent where Lin was. They were the 3 commanders of the Hidden Mist Village. They had received orders from the Hidden Mist Village. They were asked to send the target person back to the Hidden Mist Village and start the creation of the Jinchuriki. Who are you, and what do you want to do? Seeing the unfriendly eyes of the 3 people, Lin curled up in the corner, trembling with fear, like a frightened little rabbit. Don't be afraid, we won't kill you. We will send you to a very fun place and give you a big gift. A commander gently comforted her. However, Lin looked at the smile on his face and felt that it seemed to have bad intentions. Black Zetsu, give me a fulcrum to move the earth. Chapter 117 Three Tails. Why waste your words on her? A Kirigakure commander was a little impatient, stepped forward and knocked the little girl unconscious. Then he clapped his hands twice, and 3 Kirigakure Anbu appeared in the tent. You 3 take this little girl back to Kirigakure village quietly, and hand her over to the Mizukage directly. Don't let the news leak out, even if it's your own people. He instructed the 3 people again. Yes. The 3 of them didn't say much, and responded in unison. After quickly putting the little girl into a bag, they avoided everyone, and quietly left the camp. When Lin woke up, she found herself tied to a stone pillar. The surroundings were also foggy, and she could only barely see a huge lake not far away, and there were many people standing around the lake. She didn't know where she was, but she was sure that she still hadn't escaped Kirigakure's control. Are you awake? A vicissitudes of life male voice came from behind. The little girl turned her head and saw a man wearing a blue and white hat walking towards her. As the distance gradually shortened, she could see the word water printed on the hat on the other person's head. Are you the Mizukage of the Hidden Mist Village? Is this the Hidden Mist Village? She widened her eyes in fear, and even her voice trembled a little. The hat with the word water printed on it was not an ordinary hat. Just like the hat with the word fire worn by the Hokage in Konoha village, it was a symbol of the identity of the top leader of the 5 major ninja villages. Not everyone can wear it. Coupled with the rumors about the Hidden Mist Village on the mainland and the foggy environment, she was more certain of the man's identity and the location here. As for the group of people standing by the lake, there was no doubt that they were the Hidden Mist Ninja. But this also made her feel a little more desperate. Trapped in the Hidden Mist Village, in this enemy's lair, even Minato, who was known as the Golden Flash, might not be able to rescue her, let alone Kakashi, who had just become a Jonin not long ago. Seeing that the little girl was a little nervous, the Mizukage walked up to her and comforted her softly. "Don't be afraid, we won't kill you. On the contrary, we will give you a big gift." Hearing a hint of playfulness in his tone, Lin felt more and more uneasy. At this moment, a huge wave several meters high suddenly rose in the lake not far away. Even many mist ninjas standing by the lake were knocked into the water. "It's coming out. Everyone pay attention to control the barrier," someone shouted, and Lin noticed that the group of mist ninjas by the lake formed a special formation, and there was a faint chakra energy net hidden in the misty air above. "I think it should be the barrier they are talking about." Roar, accompanied by a piercing roar of a beast, a huge monster as big as a hill broke out of the water. Its huge body stirred up the lake water and once again raised a wave several meters high, knocking many of the surrounding mist ninjas away, causing the energy net in the air to flicker and shake. One can't help wondering if it will dissipate if it shakes again. "Hold your ground, don't panic," someone encouraged loudly again. Hearing this, many mist ninjas gritted their teeth and increased their chakra output to temporarily fill the increased workload of their companions. The energy net that was light and dark stabilized again in midair and slowly fell towards the giant below. Then, the mist ninjas who were overturned by the waves hurried back to their positions and continued to take over the control of the barrier. "What kind of monster is that?" Looking at the huge body appearing on the lake, Lin asked subconsciously. Because of the fog, she couldn't see what appeared on the lake. But even at a distance, she could clearly feel the oppressive chakra breath and tyrannical beast coming from the lake. She swore that she had never seen such a ferocious thing in her life. "That's the Three Tails, and it's also a little gift from me to you." Holding the hat tightly, fearing that it would be blown away by the wind, the Mizukage explained sympathetically. The tailed beasts were so big that even their every move could stir up huge waves. Even though they were nearly 10 meters away, the air waves stirred up by the other party almost blew off his bamboo hat. What do you want to do?" Lin asked tremblingly, feeling that a disaster was about to happen. Facing the strong wind, holding the bamboo hat, the Mizukage looked at her playfully and said, "Wait, you will know." On the lake, the three-tailed beast furiously attacked all around, wanting to tear the group of humans who disturbed its rest into pieces. However, the energy net that fell from the sky formed an invisible barrier around it, and no matter how it struggled, it could not break through the blockade. In fact, as the energy net fell, the invisible barrier around it became stronger and stronger, and it became increasingly powerless to stir up the waves in an attempt to interfere with the other party's spell. Seeing that the energy net was about to completely bind itself, it became more and more anxious. As a last resort, it made up its mind and prepared to use its ultimate move, the tailed beast ball. It was an energy ball that compressed yin-yang chakra in a fixed ratio. Once it exploded, it could easily destroy a small mountain. It wanted to use that move to completely break the energy net on top. However, if the tailed beast ball exploded at such a close distance, even it would be impacted, but it could not care about that at the moment. Then, it opened its mouth wide and gathered yin-yang chakra in front of its mouth. At the lakeside, seeing the three-tailed beast stop struggling and seeing chakra energy condensing in front of its mouth, the commanding mist ninja immediately shouted, "Lightning release interference. Don't let it release that move." Then, several mist ninjas rushed out from behind him and joined the ranks of maintaining the barrier. In an instant, everyone saw a blue arc of electricity suddenly hit the energy net in the air, like a blue rain of light that completely covered the huge body of the three-tailed beast. Roar, the arc of electricity surged all over the body, and the three-tailed beast let out a painful hiss, and no longer had the energy to mobilize chakra to use the tailed beast ball. Losing its control, the energy ball that had gradually formed in front of its mouth also immediately dissipated in the air. Fall. Taking this opportunity, the mist ninjas controlled the energy net to completely cover the three-tailed beast that was as big as a small mountain. Collect. Another order came, and everyone stabilized their chakras and started the next change. The energy net shot countless rays of light in all directions, which fell into the hands of the surrounding mist ninjas. Everyone caught those rays of light and pulled back, and the dazzling energy net shrank rapidly. The three-tailed beast, that was as big as a small mountain, was immediately squeezed into the size of a calf. "Sir, the three-tailed beast is ready, waiting for you to perform the final transplant seal." A mist ninja rushed to the front of the Mizukage to report. Yes, I know. Looking at the three-tailed beast locked in midair, the Mizukage had a smug smile on his face. Because there is no information about the previous Jinkriki of Haranorin, and I'm too lazy to create another one, I directly set the three-tailed beast to be in the state of being raised by the Mist Ninja at this time. It should not be a problem to lock the three-tailed beast in the lake with the power of one village. Although the tailed beasts are strong individually, they are still far behind the 5 major villages. Chapter 118 Headache. After a lot of trouble, the three-tailed beast was successfully sealed into the little girl's body. The Mizukage and a group of Mist Ninjas were so tired that they collapsed on the ground. As for Haranorin, she had already fainted from the pain of the three-tailed beast. In the ninja world, people who have tailed beasts sealed in their bodies are called Jinkriki. The purpose of doing this is to hope that the person who carries the tailed beast can control the huge amount of chakra of the tailed beast and become a human-shaped weapon of mass destruction. The idea is good, but everything has 2 sides. The tailed beasts are not ordinary beasts without intelligence. On the contrary, they have extremely high intelligence. How could they be willing to be bound by people and driven like animals? Although it is not particularly difficult for the major forces to seal the tailed beasts into people's bodies with their numerical advantage, it is difficult to let the Jinkriki compete for the control of the tailed beast's chakra. Because humans and beasts are one, the Jinkriki who cannot grab the control of the tailed beast's chakra means that they will be eroded by the tailed beast in turn. The final result is that the chakra of the sealed tailed beast overflows. The Jinkriki uncontrollably transforms into a tailed beast. The tailed beast takes over the dominant consciousness, launches retaliatory attacks on humans, and brings disaster to the people around. This is the tailed beast runaway. In order to ensure the smooth implementation of the plan to destroy Konoha, the Mizukage deliberately tampered with the seal and left a backup. As long as the little girl returns to Konoha, they can easily unlock the seal and release the three-tailed beast in the heart of Konoha village. Facing the runaway three-tailed beast, the defenseless Konoha village will only have one result of being destroyed. Whenever he thought of this, he felt very happy. If he didn't need to preside over the overall situation of the Hidden Mist village, he would even want to go into battle himself and witness the scene of Konoha being destroyed by the three-tailed beast. After resting for a while, he slowly stood up and told the assistant beside him, "Go call the people from the intelligence department and erase all the memories of this little guy about us. Send someone to send her to the front line and let them deploy the next action themselves." Then he pointed to an open scroll next to him and solemnly reminded, "That is the key to trigger the seal, which is effective within a range of 10 meters. Take it back to the front line and let them decide for themselves." After that, he waved his hand and was about to leave. Suddenly he remembered something and turned back and said, "The amber purification bottle borrowed from the Cloud Village will be sent directly to the front line. Let them make sure to recover the three-tailed beast. We already have a candidate for the next three-tailed beast. If it weren't for this plan, we would have already started to deal with the three-tailed beast. There are 2-tailed beasts in the Kirigakure, the 3-tailed beast and the 6-tailed beast. Among them, the 6-tailed beast has been sealed on the human pillar, leaving only the 3-tailed beast. It just so happened that recently, they found a child with a high degree of compatibility with the 3-tailed chakra. If they hadn't wanted to turn the tide of the war, they would never have taken such a big risk to create a temporary Jinkriki. Yes, the assistant didn't dare to neglect it and nodded immediately. Afterwards, the 3 Miss Ninja and Boo who transported Lin back once again took the little girl to the front line. But this time, they had an extra scroll in their hands. When Lin woke up again, she was already in the mist camp and was tied up. "Why am I back here again?" Seeing the ripple marks around her, she subconsciously muttered to herself. "Wait, why did I say again?" She suddenly realized that something was wrong. She only remembered that she was inexplicably abducted here before, and then, just as she was about to recall what happened later, a sharp pain came from her mind, as if someone had pierced her brain with countless needles, and the pain was unbearable. How could this happen? My head. Her head was splitting with pain. She wanted to rub it with her hands, but she was tied up tightly and couldn't reach up at all. She could only lie on the ground and struggle in pain. Because of the sudden headache, she stopped recalling, and the headache was relieved. After a long time, she finally recovered, but her clothes were soaked with sweat. What happened to my body? Why is my head? Just when she thought of this, the stabbing pain hit her mind again, completely drowning her thoughts. Except for the inexplicable stabbing pain, she could not feel anything. In this way, she felt the needle-like pain several times again and again, and she finally understood that it was because her brain was damaged. And her memory was fragmented because it was forcibly erased. Brain damage also came from this. Once she tried to recall what happened after being kidnapped, it would stimulate the damaged brain cells. The headache came from this. After being tortured several times, she was afraid of the pain that penetrated her soul and dared not recall the past, but she also felt vaguely that those memories seemed very important and she had to remember them. Because, from the moment she opened her eyes, she had a feeling of impending disaster in her heart. It was a sense of disaster that penetrated her heart. No matter how she tried to encourage herself and motivate herself, she could not dispel the haze in her heart. In this way, she has been struggling between choosing to remember and forget. On the other side, just when Lin was quietly sent back to the front line of Kirigakure again, the envoys of Qimogakure also arrived. They sent a replica of the amber purifying bottle and left instructions for use. In the command tent, a Qimogakure ninja said to the 3 Kirigakure commanders, "We are looking forward to the moment when Kirigakure destroys Konoha village. Lord Ai and Lord Killer B have led their troops to the border of the Land of Fire and are ready to attack at any time. I believe you will see that scene." A commander smiled proudly. At this time, another Cloud Ninja said sternly, "We have completed our escort mission and have to go back to report. We will not disturb you from executing the strategic plan. Goodbye." After that, he winked at his companions and left the Kirigakure command tent. Seeing that the 3 commanders looked unhappy, the remaining Cloud Ninja hurriedly smiled and said, "Sorry, he has an unpleasant personality. I hope you don't mind. Then I won't bother you anymore." Then, he also followed out of the Kirigakure command tent. Seeing that both of them had left, a commander slammed the table and said, "A mere Jonin dares to be so arrogant. That guy is too rude. Forget it. He has the qualifications to be arrogant." Another commander shook his head and smiled bitterly. Because the 3rd Raikage died relatively early, the Hidden Cloud village has never been able to free up its hands to deal with Konoha. From the beginning of the war with Sand Village to now, they have not participated in the battle much. Judging from the current situation, in terms of overall strength, the Hidden Cloud village is not much worse than the current Konoha village. That's right. The man nodded helplessly. Suddenly, he caught a glimpse of the commander sitting on the other side, who had changed dramatically, and asked in surprise, "What happened to you these days? It's like you've become a different person. You even speak very little." Chapter 119 Ready. "Well, I haven't been feeling well these past few days, so." The commander who had transformed into Juso scratched his head, laughed dryly a few times, and didn't continue talking, but his meaning was very clear. He had no choice but to remain silent. Because time was too short, he didn't get too much personal information from the unlucky commander, who was killed by him. If he opened his mouth casually, he would probably reveal a flaw and be suspected. In order to control enough intelligence and understand Kirigakure's deployment on the little girl in real time, it was very necessary for him to maintain his identity as the Kirigakure commander. This was also the reason why he had to kill the commander and replace him. He wanted to add his own plan to Kirigakure's plan. "Since you're not feeling well, go find a medical ninja to check it out," a commander said to him with concern. "It's okay." He waved his hand and smiled. "They have already brought me some medicine, saying that I will be cured in 2 days." In order to avoid revealing flaws, he didn't want the two to continue talking about him, and immediately changed the subject and said, "Recovering the three-tail is also an important part of the entire strategic plan. Who do you think is more appropriate to send to carry out this task?" Hearing this, the other two commanders immediately fell into deep thought. After a long time, one of them said, "Let the King team go." King's white eyes could not only remotely observe the movements of the three-tail, but also detect the enemy's tracks in advance. Whether it is waiting for an opportunity to enter the scene to recover the three-tail or to retreat with the three-tail, it is very convenient. Let them go. The success rate is undoubtedly the highest. Second, the other person agreed immediately after hearing this. Then who should be sent to release the three-tail? The key to trigger the seal is the top priority, and it must not be lost. Ju asked again. The first commander suggested, pick a few good people from the Anbu to go together. Let them guard the seal key, and once they find that little girl entering Konoha village, immediately release the three tails. How about letting me pick the people? He suggested. You? The other commander looked at him, thought for a moment, and nodded. Okay. But don't pick the wrong person. Once the seal key falls into Konoha's hands, it will be troublesome. Okay, I get it. The black and white commander nodded and asked, where is the key? Here. The first commander responded, then took out a scroll from his pocket and threw it straight over. He caught it gently, with a meaningful smile on his face. Then, the first commander went on to say, I have asked my subordinates to spread the news that we have captured the little girl, and also revealed the information that we are going to send her to the Hidden Mist village for a terrible experiment. I think Konoha already knows about it. In the afternoon, we will find a few weak teams to escort her back to the Hidden Mist village. I believe Konoha will come to rescue her. As he spoke, a look of pride appeared on his face. He glanced at the companion that you had transformed into, and continued, at that time, you let the Anbu carrying the key follow in the dark, and wait until the people of Konoha rescue her, and then launch a pursuit. We will also dispatch a part of the troops on the front line to cooperate, and block all the roads leading to the Konoha camp, leaving them only the road to Konoha village. Then drive them completely into Konoha village. Great things can be accomplished. Ju nodded and applauded. Not bad, not bad. This is a good plan. I will go downstairs to arrange people to protect the keys. After that, he happily walked out of the command tent with the scroll. Watching him disappear at the door of the tent, a commander frowned and looked at his companion, wondering, do you feel that he is a little strange these days? Another person thought for a while and said nonchalantly, didn't he say that he was not feeling well? You are too suspicious. The man sighed and shook his head. I hope I'm too suspicious. Then, the two sent someone to call King to the command tent and handed over the task of amber bottle and retrieving the three-tailed beast. Captain King, the tailed beast is of great importance. Please make sure to retrieve it successfully. A commander once again reminded the young man with eye mask. I will definitely fulfill my mission. King took the amber bottle with a solemn face, and his voice was firm. Being given such an important task is both a pressure and an honor, and it is also an affirmation of their team's ability. On the other side, after selecting 10 Anbu experts, Zetsu selected a captain from them and brought him into an empty tent. He whispered to him, wait a minute, we will send someone to escort a little boy from Konoha back to the Hidden Mist village, and you will quietly follow behind them. Wait until the people from Konoha rescue the little boy, then you will start chasing him. Hearing this, the Hidden Mist Anbu was surprised and asked, why didn't you let us intercept them when they were about to take action? The commander who had transformed himself chuckled and said, because letting them successfully kidnap the person is part of our plan. So you can only chase him, not kill him. Just chase him, not kill him. The man was stunned for a moment. At this moment of distraction, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his chest. He looked down and saw that a kunai had pierced his chest. You. He raised his head and looked at the commander. He was about to say something, but the other party pinched his neck and lifted him up. He had no chance at all. But the other party smiled grimly and said, however, I think it's safer for me to go there in person. After all, this beautiful drama is prepared by me for someone. As for your Kirigakure strategic plan, it's none of my business. Before he finished speaking, he saw the commander in front of him turned into another half black and half white weirdo. At this point, he didn't understand that Kirigakure's headquarters had been invaded by an unknown opponent. Unfortunately, he knew it too late and had no chance to spread the news. He only heard a crisp sound, and then he realized that his neck had no strength, his head drooped helplessly, and his consciousness gradually blurred. Aren't we going to play the game of Kirigakure Commander anymore? The white face on Ju's body said in surprise. These days, He stayed in Kirigakure's camp and had a lot of fun. He was a little reluctant. Although the food was not delicious in the war, it was better than sleeping in that dark cave. Everything is ready. The show should start. That's much more fun than playing the commander. Blackface said meaningfully, and then slowly formed a seal, using the chakra absorbed from the Anbu just now, and transformed into the other party's appearance. With another light stomp of his foot, several huge wooden roots emerged from the ground, dragging the man's body into the ground, and the broken ground returned to its original state again. It was as if nothing had happened. Except for a few drops of blood at his feet, nothing was left. Chapter 120 Wine Jar. Captain Kakashi, in the Konoha camp, a ninja came from a distance and stopped a distraught boy. "What's the matter?" The boy turned around mechanically and asked with a dull look. These days, Kakashi dug the entire Konoha camp 3 feet deep, but couldn't find any trace of Lin. He was in a very bad mood. You know, Lin was not only his teammate, but also the last wish of his friend before his death. The disappearance of Lin was a blow to him. Just now a companion sent a message saying that they found out about you and Yilin. The man was so tired that he was out of breath. What? Hearing this, the boy, who had originally had a dull look in his eyes, suddenly came to life like a willow branch sprouting. He grabbed the man's shoulders tightly, shook him desperately, and asked anxiously, "Hurry up and tell me, where is Lin? Captain. You don't shake it first." After being shaken so hard by him, the man's voice was a little tearful. Seeing the man's uncomfortable look, Kakashi stopped shaking, suppressed his excitement, and hurriedly said, "I'm sorry, I'm too excited." Then, he asked again, "Where is Lin? Where is Lin?" Getting rid of Kakashi's claws, the man patted his chest, breathed a sigh of relief, and slowly said, "A companion heard that Kirigakure has captured a Konoha ninja and is going to send him back to Kirigakure for some experiments. Although we don't know what they are going to do, as our opponents, we will of course spare no effort to disrupt their plans." So, a companion went to intercept him, and only then did he find out that the Konoha ninja captured by Kirigakure was the Heron Rin you have been looking for these days. Rin was indeed captured by Kirigakure ninja. Kakashi was horrified. He had not found any trace of Lin, so he suspected that Lin had fallen into Kirigakure's hands. But he couldn't explain how the other party sneaked into the Konoha camp quietly and took Lin away quietly. "Where are they?" "Forget it, take me there. We'll talk on the way." Kakashi didn't say anything, took the man's hand, and rushed out of the camp. "Lin, wait for me, I will definitely rescue you." Looking at the camp exit getting closer and closer, his belief became more and more firm. On the other side, King returned to the team with a replica of the amber purifier bottle. "Captain, why are you carrying such a big wine jar back?" Pointing at the orange clay jar on the back of them asked young man with one hand, and covering her stomach with the other hand. Mediterumi laughed until tears came out. Hearing the legend that the ninja tool was mistaken for a big wine jar, King's face immediately darkened. When he got the amber purifier bottle from the headquarters earlier, he also thought that the 3 commanders had taken the wrong thing and took out the leftover wine jar. It was not until he confirmed it repeatedly with the 3 people that he realized that the rustic thing on his back, which looked like a wine jar, was really the ninja tool passed down by the 6 Paths sage, the amber purifier bottle. Otherwise, he would never be willing to carry such a rustic thing on his back. Next to Mediterumi, seeing the big jar on King's back, Qishuang also mistakenly thought it was just an ordinary jar at first glance, but after seeing the change in the captain's face, he immediately understood that it must be something extraordinary. Making way for team leader King to enter the tent with a jar on his back, Qishuang also took this opportunity to carefully glance at the jar several times. "Why does this thing look familiar?" he said to himself. "How can it not be familiar? It's a big wine jar." Mediterumi laughed so hard that she almost choked, but King's face became even darker. Even Zabuza, who usually doesn't smile, smiled a little when he saw the jar on the captain's back. Hearing this, King, who had gently put down the wine jar, could no longer hold back. He pointed at the object next to him and argued with a red face, "What big wine jar? This is the legendary ninja tool left by the Six Paths sage, the amber purifier bottle. Huh. Meditarumi hissed playfully, glanced at the wine jar, and the teasing in her eyes became stronger. Obviously, she didn't believe that the rustic jar was a legendary ninja tool. Zabuza next to him also shook his head gently. Although he had never seen the amber purifier bottle, it was hard to believe that the captain said that the rustic jar was a legendary ninja tool. Only Qishuang showed a look of surprise after hearing the name of the amber purifier bottle. No wonder he felt that the jar was so familiar. It turned out to be the treasure of the Hidden Cloud Village. Isn't this thing the treasure of the Hidden Cloud Village? Why are you willing to give it to us? After walking around the jar twice, he asked the captain in surprise. Hearing this, Meditarumi and Zabuza were both stunned. It was fine for the captain to joke that the jar was a legendary ninja tool, but it didn't make sense for Qishuang to join in the joke and tease them. Could it be that the rustic jar is really the amber purifier bottle? The two of them couldn't help but have such a question in their minds. Seeing that there were still people who knew the goods, King's face looked much better. He glanced at Meditarumi and the others unhappily and explained to the three people, this is not the real amber purifier bottle, it's just a replica. The top leaders of Kirigakure deliberately went to the Hidden Cloud Village to borrow it. Replica? Qishuang was a little surprised. She didn't expect that the Hidden Cloud Village could actually make such a thing. Although there are differences in the size of the functions of the replica and the real thing, the specific functions should be similar. They are both sealing ninja tools. Then, he hurriedly asked, why did the top leaders borrow such a thing? He couldn't figure out why the top leaders borrowed this thing from their team. Mission. King glanced at the three people and said solemnly, the higher-ups want us to use the amber purifier bottle to recover the runaway tailed beasts. Recover the tailed beasts. The three people present were all shocked. The ferocity of the tailed beasts was extraordinary. Even if they had never seen them, they had heard about the ferocity of the tailed beasts from other seniors. It was really overwhelming and unstoppable. Among them, Nana Frost frowned even more. He probably knew about the tailed beasts as much as those Jinkriki. The tailed beasts were all very large, so a casual attack from them could cause immeasurable damage. Coupled with the huge amount of chakra, once they released magic attacks, they could form an overwhelming offensive. It can be said that they were a group of very dangerous guys. Once they were targeted by them, it was difficult for anyone to escape their offensive. Even if the amber purifier bottle had the ability to seal the tailed beasts, it would be difficult for him to feel safe, because he was likely to be killed by the opponent with a casual attack. At this time, Meditarumi asked in surprise, the 9-tailed beasts in the ninja world have long been divided up by various major forces. Where are there any tailed beasts nearby for us to recover? King glanced at her and said calmly, we released the 3-tailed beast ourselves. Chapter 121 Opening. Hearing this, Qishuang was suddenly shocked and thought to himself, could it be that incident? During this period, the only thing that could be related to the 3 tails was the death of Harino Rin. Although many details did not match his memory, in terms of the overall trend of the war, it should be the same thing. Although the plan of the Kirigakure village was very detailed, the heavens were not favorable. Harino Rin committed suicide and the Kirigakure plan was aborted. If nothing unexpected happened, the Kirigakure plan would also fail this time. He did not have to face the runaway tailed beast. Thinking of this, a big stone in his heart was finally put down, and he breathed a sigh of relief. Beside him, Meditarumi hurriedly asked, 3 tails. When did the higher-ups release the 3 tails? King shook his head and whispered, wait a minute, you will know. This plan is the last fight of the Kirigakure village. If it fails again, they can only choose to cease fire and negotiate. For such an important strategic plan, he still knows what to say and what not to say. HMPH. Stingy. After being rejected, Meditarumi turned around angrily and slapped the leader on the back of his head and immediately turned her attention to the big wine jar. In a dark cave somewhere, a one-eyed boy was working hard to exercise. Frog jumps, push-ups, supine, one after another, as if he had endless energy. Although he was sweating profusely and his limbs were shaking slightly, he still gritted his teeth and did not give up. In a corner of the cave, a white-haired old man sat on a stone chair, propping his head and asked, are you so anxious to get out? The boy turned his head, his one eye flashing with a strange red light, and said firmly, "Lin is everything to me. Without her, what is the meaning of my life?" The old man slowly sat up, shook his head, and said softly, "The happiness of mortals is short-lived. In this cruel ninja world, your happiness is even more difficult to maintain. If you don't pay attention, it will be completely annihilated in hatred and killing." As he said, he stretched out his right hand and gently grasped it, as if crushing something in his palm. The boy said indifferently, "Senior, didn't you say that the Sharingan was born for love? As long as my love for Lin deepens, the power of the Sharingan will be stronger. With these eyes, I will definitely be able to protect Lin." After that, he pointed to his right eye proudly. "But you only have one eye. The power of the Sharingan is not complete. Only when both eyes are gathered together can the Sharingan exert its true power." The old man shook his head again. Hearing this, the little boy was very excited and continued, "The eye is on Kakashi. If I join hands with him, no difficulty can stop us." The old man raised his eyelids, glanced at him, and whispered, "Friendship also has its end." In a trance, he seemed to see a man wearing red armor and carrying a huge scroll. Then, he drooped his eyelids and fell into a deep sleep again. Inexplicable. Seeing that the old man no longer paid attention to him, the little boy shook his head and continued his fitness. In the command tent of the hidden mist camp, the remaining two commanders found that their companion had not returned. "Why has that guy been gone for so long and hasn't come back yet?" One person frowned. The other thought for a while and pouted. Could it be that he went out to play again? In the past few days, their companion's personality has changed drastically. Sometimes he seems very deep, like an old man, and sometimes he seems very playful, like a child who has not grown up. If it weren't for the fact that the chakra aura on the other person did not change, they would almost think that it was replaced by an outsider. Forget it. Forget about him. The first commander waved his hand and said impatiently, "The team escorting the little girl has been out for a while, and the people of Konoha should have succeeded. Let's quickly confirm the positions of each unit. Don't let the little guy go home the wrong way." As he said that, a smug smile appeared on his face. At the same time, Zetsu used his new identity obtained by transformation to quietly follow with dozens of Kirigakure Anbu, and escorted the Kirigakure team of Haranorin to the beach. These guys from Konoha are really useless. Hiding in the dark, looking at the several corpses lying on the beach, a Kirigakure ninja in the team side. Just now, a team of Konoha ninjas came and wanted to save the little girl, but they were killed by the escorting Kirigakure team. You know, among the escorting Kirigakure team, the strongest is only at the level of Chunin, and most of them are Genin. It's really laughable that they can't even beat this kind of guardian power and dare to come to rescue people. Hush. Another mist hidden Anbu nearby made a gesture to keep quiet and whispered, "Be careful and hide. Someone is coming." Before the words fell, the mist hidden Anbu hidden in the dark heard a chirping of birds. Everyone looked in the direction of the sound and saw a masked boy in dark blue clothes, dragging a shining arc, like a stream of light, rushing towards the mist-hidden ninja team escorting the little girl. In just a blink of an eye, the boy rushed into the crowd with the arc. Like cutting wheat, the mist ninjas fell one after another, wherever the lightning passed. Occasionally, one or two of them reacted faster and had time to raise their weapons to block, but under the blue arc, it had no effect. The lightning passed by without any delay. They could only stare unwillingly, holding the broken weapons in their hands, and fell straight to the ground. And the boy's companions were still 10 meters away, and had no time to join the battle. What a powerful kid. Do you recognize him? In the dark, a mist ninja Anbu asked his companions. He is Hatake Kakashi. The mist ninja Anbu transformed by Zetsu introduced him to everyone with empathy, the disciple of Minato Namikaze who became famous in the Battle of Kanabi Bridge. So it's him. Kakashi with Sharingan. Everyone suddenly realized. Although Hatake Kakashi is far less famous than his master, with his superb personal talent, he achieved the position of Jonin at the age of 12, and with the help of the Sharingan, he is also a leader among the younger generation. Many people in the Mist Village have heard of his name. Then, in the surprised eyes of everyone, Kakashi quickly killed the escorted Konoha girl like chopping vegetables and melons. The subsequent Konoha ninjas finally caught up and quickly dealt with the remaining Mist ninjas. Rin, I'm here. Kakashi shouted loudly while untying the rope for the little girl. But the little girl still looked dazed, without any reaction. Confused, he quickly used the power of his Sharingan to scan the little girl's body, and then he found that the chakra flow in her body was very disordered. It turns out that she is under an illusion. He suddenly realized. Then, he quickly made a seal with one hand and pointed the other hand at the little girl's forehead, infusing chakra into it. Release. With a light shout, he used his own chakra to disrupt the illusion chakra cast by the Mist Ninja on Lin. The illusion was then resolved. In fact, I originally wanted to directly cut into the scene of Yuan Lin's death. Because the TV has an original part, I wanted to omit it. But after thinking about it carefully, if I do that, the plot in the middle will seem very empty. I have no choice but to write this paragraph again. In the end, there is no change, but the details have been reshaped by me, and it is different from the TV version. It's just, I always feel like reheating old food. It's very uncomfortable. Chapter 122, Chasing. Kakashi. Looking at the masked silver-haired boy in front of her, Lin couldn't help crying with joy. I knew you would definitely come to save me. The little girl suddenly hugged him and burst into tears. Don't worry, Lin. Kakashi patted her on the back and comforted her softly. I promised him that I would protect you with my life. I will never let you get hurt. At this time, the Konoha ninjas who had dealt with the remaining Mist ninjas gathered around, and one of them said solemnly, Captain Kakashi, let's leave quickly. There is not a single Jonin among these Mist ninjas. I always feel something is wrong. Hearing this, Kakashi turned his head and said, okay, let's leave now. Then, he signaled the little girl who was holding him to let go, and whispered, Lin, let's go. Yeah. The little girl nodded and let go of her partner. Then, the group began to return along the original route. Seeing this, the Kirigakure subordinates who were hiding in the dark said, now, it's your turn. Yes. Everyone walked out of the shelter and said yes. Remember, the guy named Kakashi and the little girl he just rescued cannot move. You can only chase them, but not kill them. As for the others, you can do whatever you want with them. He reminded them again just in case. He was afraid that these bloodthirsty guys would kill the two in advance before the protagonist appeared once they were red-eyed. Don't worry, sir. We all remember it. Everyone patted their chests and promised. Okay, then go. Seeing this, he was too lazy to say anything else and waved his hand to send everyone away. After receiving the order, dozens of Kirigakure Zenbu experts followed the footsteps of Kakashi and others and chased after them. When everyone disappeared from sight, a white person grew out of thin air on a tree trunk next to him. It was an artificial creation with the same origin as his white half, the white Zetsu. Because they mastered the stealth abilities of wood release and earth release, these white Zetsu could move freely in the soil and forests. Although their overall combat effectiveness was not satisfactory, they could communicate with each other over short distances, which was very convenient for transmitting messages. He looked at the white companion growing out of the tree trunk and solemnly warned, hurry up and bring that little guy out. The show is about to begin. If such an important audience is not present, there will be no meaning for this show to exist. Leave it to us. White Zetsu showed a playful smile, sank into the tree trunk again, and disappeared. On the earth, there are far more than just one white Zetsu like him, but countless. They were placed in various positions, and with the help of short-distance telepathy, they used each of them as a base point to weave a huge information transmission network. Just like a relay race, one person passing on the information to another, the information can be quickly transmitted to the destination. After the instructions were completed, the Mist Ninja Ranbu, that Zetsu transformed into, followed the footprints left by everyone, and chased after them. The most important audience has not yet arrived, and he still needs to continue to control the situation. The seal key in his hand was the climax of the play, and he had to accurately control the timing of this scene. Therefore, he could not leave the stage. On the other side, Kakashi and his companions were caught up by the long-planned Kirigakure Ranbu before they ran far. Captain Kakashi, you go first. I'll stop them. A Konoha ninja slowed down and volunteered to shout, don't, as if infected by his courage. Before Kakashi could finish his words, several ninjas left the team one after another. I'll go too. Add me. In just a blink of an eye, Kakashi's team, which was already small in number, shrunk by half. The 5 or 6 Konoha ninjas who left the team drew their weapons and went straight to the Kirigakure ninjas who were chasing them. Perhaps the battle to rescue Rin was too easy, which gave them the impression that the Kirigakure ninjas were vulnerable. Facing the mist ninjas that caught up with them this time, they didn't take it seriously, as if they had already seen their heroic killing and the scene of the enemy's corpses lying on the ground. Unfortunately, they overestimated themselves and underestimated the enemy. Although there were only a few dozen people in this group of mist ninjas, most of them were jonin, and only a few were chunin. The overall strength was far beyond the mist ninja team that had just escorted Lin. In an instant, the two sides had already engaged in close combat. The number of people was not superior, and the strength was not superior, so the result was obvious. The group of Konoha ninjas who were excited and thought they could add a piece of merit to themselves when they crossed paths with the mist ninjas, fell to the ground like a bat with broken wings and stopped flying. How can they be so strong? Seeing this scene, a ninja in Kakashi's team shouted in horror. At this point, they finally realized that the strength of this group of enemies was far greater than the previous group. Quietly removing the forehead protector on his left face, Kakashi used his Sharingan to scan the many mist ninjas behind him and said solemnly, "Their chakra aura is very strong. Most of them are jonin, and only a small number are chunin. Everyone, don't try to fight them, speed up. As long as we can get back to the camp, we will be saved." With so many jonin mixed in, he really didn't want to stop fighting. The gap in strength between the two sides was too big. There was no chance of winning. Beside him, Yuan Yelin buried her head and hurried on her way, and she didn't say a word. Because after she was rescued by Kakashi, the joy in her heart did not last too long, but was shrouded by an indelible shadow again. The sense of crisis that had accompanied her for several days did not disappear because she was rescued, but became deeper. At the same time, she also discovered some abnormalities in herself. Logically, as a medical ninja, her physical fitness was not her strong point, so when she was on the same team with Kakashi in the past, she was always the slowest one and the first one to feel tired. But today was completely different from the past. She felt as if she had endless energy in her body. Not only could she keep up with Kakashi's speed, she didn't feel tired at all, and even felt that she could go a little faster. All kinds of abnormalities showed that there was an unknown change in her body. She had a hunch that the unknown change was the source of her uneasiness. In a cave somewhere, a white Zetsu half sticked out of the stone wall and shouted to the little boy who was working hard on the ground, "It's not good, it's not good. Your friends Kakashi and Lin are being hunted by the Mist Ninja Anbu. All of them are some good players of the Anbu. The situation is very dangerous." The little boy suddenly looked up and said in surprise, "Isn't Minato teacher here? How can there be danger?" "I don't know. My companions don't seem to see Namikaze Minato with them." White Zetsu shook his head vigorously. After the death of Iranolin, this volume should be almost over. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 123 Departure. No, Lin is in danger. I have to leave here quickly. Hearing this, the little boy gritted his teeth and fixed his eyes on a stone door in the cave. Then he rushed forward and punched the stone door. There was a dull thud and a basin-sized hole was smashed on the stone door, but compared to the stone door that was several meters high, such damage could be completely ignored. At the same time, the boy's right arm was completely shattered by the recoil force because of excessive force or other reasons, and he was also bounced to the other side. Strangely, there was no blood flowing from his broken arm, only a little bit of white sticky substance dripping. It was completely unlike an ordinary person. As if he was completely unaware of the pain of his right arm being shattered, the little boy just covered his broken arm and stared at the stone door like a man-eating beast. He took 2 steps back, rushed forward again, and swung his left fist. Boom. The result was still the same. He was bounced to the ground again, but this time his left arm was not shattered like his right arm. It seemed much more resilient. He did not lose heart and climbed up and tried again. He was bounced back, tried again, and was bounced back. Seeing that he tried again and again, panting and tired, but still not giving up, the Beisetsu who emerged from the stone wall said, "Do you really want to get out? I must go to save Lin." The little boy replied firmly, "I can help you, but you can't tell him." As he said that, Beisetsu glanced at the corner of the cave, where the white-haired old man was sleeping on a stone chair. "Really?" The little boy was overjoyed, and also glanced at the old man, vowing, "Don't worry, I won't tell that old man. Well, I'll lend you my body." Beisetsu pushed his hand against the stone wall, and immediately pulled himself out of the stone wall like pulling a carrot, but did not leave any trace of damage on the stone wall. Walking up to the little boy, he put his hand on his shoulder, and immediately stuck to him like a puddle of mud. When his transformation completely stopped, the little boy seemed to have a set of close-fitting white soft armor on his body, and even the shattered right arm grew out of thin air. Looking at his restored right arm, the little boy was amazed. "Wow, you are really amazing. Can you teach me?" The white zetsu on his body said, "The half of your body that was originally broken was reconstructed with the bodies of my compatriots, so I can parasitize on you and perform changes to let you use my body. You can't learn it. Now, try again. Can you open the stone door?" "Yeah." Hearing that he couldn't learn it, the little boy didn't get too discouraged and turned his attention to the stone door not far away. At this time, there was only one thought left in his mind. He wanted to leave here and save Lin. He stepped back a few steps, clenched his fists, took a deep breath, and the white tube behind him, that came from the white zetsu and connected to the depths of the cave, seemed to transmit something into his body. Then he rushed to the stone door and punched it. Crack. Under his fist, the first crack appeared on the stone door, and the cracks spread and expanded in all directions, more and more, and in the blink of an eye, the entire stone door was covered. Then the stone door collapsed. At the same time, the catheter behind him automatically disconnected, and the little boy's face was happy, and he rushed out with big strides. The old man who was sleeping on the stone chair in a corner of the cave slowly opened his eyes. Only when you see the cruelty of hell will you understand how worth looking forward to eternal happiness. On the other side, in the camp of Kirigakure, the king team soon received a message that the target had been rescued, and they could set off. "I don't care about this big wine jar. Such an ugly thing. None of you can let me carry it." Terumi Meri pointed at the amber purifier bottle on the ground and shouted. Hearing this, King's face couldn't help but darken a little more. He didn't think so much at first, but Meri Terumi kept shouting big wine jar and big wine jar, which made him think that this was the big wine jar. Although the amber purifier bottle is a legendary ninja tool, its shape is really not flattering. People in his team still know that it is a legendary ninja tool, but people outside may not know it. In the eyes of most people, it is probably just a big wine jar, and he can't explain it one by one. When he thought about himself, a dignified white-eyed killer, carrying such a big wine jar, and being pointed at by others, he really couldn't afford to lose that person. He immediately gave up the idea of keeping the amber purifier bottle himself. Then, he looked at the two little boys and said confidently, "You two decide who will carry this big amber purifier bottle." Before he finished speaking, even he couldn't help laughing. The image of the wine jar of the amber bottle was so deeply rooted in people's minds that even he almost called it big wine jar. Looking at the wine jar on the ground, Qishuang's mouth twitched. Like Terumi Meri, he was reluctant to carry such a thing out. It was too embarrassing. But there were only 4 of them in the team. Excluding King and Terumi Meri, there were only him and Zabuza. It was not easy to refuse. Then, he came up with a plan and said to Zabuza, "Don't you always want to fight with me? As long as you take this matter, I agree to fight with you. How about this deal?" The catalysis of the war caused everyone's strength to increase rapidly, because those who can't improve can only die on the battlefield. Qishuang's talent and strength also emerged in the team, not inferior to the other two. Terumi Meri and others had such questions. If he had not withdrawn from the exam at the last minute and faced Zabuza directly, what would have been the ending of the two? Meditarumi and Ao were fine, they were just curious, but Zabuza, the person involved, was very persistent in wanting to know the answer to this matter. Because the closer the two of them got, the more clearly he could see the other's growth. The child who was once disdained by him has grown into a partner and opponent that he dared not despise. This made him feel a strange emotion in his heart. He wanted to compete with the other party several times, but was rejected by Qishuang. Now, with such an opportunity, he naturally agreed happily. It was just a wine jar, which was far less valuable than the opportunity to compete with Qishuang. That's what you said. Picking up the amber bottle on the ground, he once again solemnly confirmed with Qishuang. Yes. Qishuang smiled and nodded. He knew very well what Zabuza wanted, so he could propose such a deal. Then, in the surprised eyes of Meditarumi and Ao, Zabuza calmly carried the amber bottle on his back. The dispute that was about to break out was resolved invisibly. This chapter was my mistake. I actually wrote the scene where Obito broke out of the door again. Fortunately, I found something wrong halfway through writing it and quickly cut the scene. Sorry. Please bear with me for a while. Chapter 124 Expulsion. Then, facing the strange looks of many compatriots in the camp, Zabuza carried a large jar on his back and followed King and others out of the camp without any care. On the other side, Kakashi and others stepped up their escape pace after discovering that the mist ninja chasing them was very powerful. Unfortunately, the mist ninja behind them kept following closely behind them, and they couldn't get rid of them at all. Even many of their companions died one after another in the opponent's sneak attacks. Soon, Kakashi was the only one left in the team he brought to rescue Lin. Kakashi, don't worry about me, go first. Lin shouted to the silver-haired masked boy next to him. Waving the kunai in his hand, Kakashi once again blocked the shuriken shot from behind. As he hurried on, Kakashi said to her, no matter what, I will protect you. This is my promise to him. But, no buts. Kakashi interrupted her and continued, although they are numerous, as long as we run faster and don't let them form a siege, there is still hope. Seeing his firm expression, it was useless for her to say anything more. The little girl had to grit her teeth and try her best to move forward. At the same time, because of the unknown changes in her body, she felt that the brain cells damaged by the forced deletion of memory had recovered a lot. Recalling the past will no longer cause headaches. Although she still can't figure out what happened in the past few days, there are more scattered fragments of memory in her mind. Fog, lakes, monsters. But for a moment, she still can't remember what those mean. There are enemies over there. Let's change direction. Kakashi suddenly told Lin while running, and then took her to flee in another direction. After running for a while, he found that there were enemies blocking them. As a last resort, he had to take Lin and turn in another direction. But not long after, he found that there were people blocking them in front of him. This cycle repeated again and again, changing direction after direction, but they still could not get close to the frontline camp of Konoha. Glancing at the mist ninja and Boo chasing closely behind, Kakashi solemnly said to the little girl next to him, it seems that they should have made a great effort and sent people to block our way back to the camp. It's hard for us to get back to the camp. However, Lin was immersed in the fragments of memory in her mind and didn't pay attention to what he said. Seeing that the little girl didn't respond, but looked absent-minded and worried, Kakashi shouted twice, Lin, Lin, ah. Hearing this sudden call, Lin came back to her senses. What's wrong, Kakashi? She turned her head and asked in surprise. What's wrong with me? It's you who's wrong, right? Why didn't you respond when I talked to you just now? The silver-haired masked boy asked with concern. Oh, I was just thinking about something, so I didn't notice what you said. I'm so sorry. Lin suddenly realized and hurriedly apologized to him. What are you thinking about so deeply? Kakashi asked in surprise. Nothing. The little girl smiled reassuringly and changed the subject. What did you say to me before? Seeing that she didn't want to answer, Kakashi didn't want to continue asking, so he had to reply. I said, our way back to the camp is probably blocked, and we can't go back to the camp directly. Huh? Lin exclaimed, and asked again, then what should we do? There are so many mist ninja and Boo chasing us. I don't know if the group of hateful guys behind are a little tired of chasing or for some other reason. Although I have been following them, every time I was about to catch up with them, I was thrown away by the two people who sped up, so I couldn't really stop them. Kakashi led Lin to another direction to avoid the Mist Ninja who was intercepting them, and then he said, "Let's go back to Konoha. Go straight back to Konoha village. Go back to Konoha." Kakashi's words were like a key that opened a door in Lin's mind, but when she thought about it carefully, she couldn't remember anything. It was dark inside the door and she couldn't see anything. She just felt vaguely that there was a voice in her heart reminding her that she couldn't go back to Konoha. "We can't go back to Konoha," she said loudly to Kakashi. Although she didn't quite understand why the voice in her heart was saying that, she chose to believe herself. "Why?" Kakashi asked, puzzled. "This is my intuition." Yuan Yelin covered her chest tightly, glanced back at the Mist Ninja behind her, and said solemnly, "Haven't you noticed it yet? The guys behind us have been chasing us and killed everyone else, but they didn't kill us too. Obviously, they deliberately left us behind. Moreover, every time we tried to get close to the Konoha camp, the Mist Ninjas immediately came out to stop us and drove us somewhere else. I feel like they are deliberately driving us to Konoha village." The little girl became more and more excited, and with the warning signs in her heart, she felt that this was the real purpose of the Mist Ninjas. Kakashi was a smart person. He just wanted to take Lin away before, and didn't think too much. After the little girl said this, he immediately realized that something was wrong. Those intercepting Mist Ninjas were driving them to Konoha village unknowingly, just like driving cattle and sheep. "Well, we won't go back to Konoha village. I'll take you back to Konoha camp." Kakashi immediately took the little girl and turned in a different direction, heading straight for Konoha camp. Although he didn't know what Kirigakure was planning, he believed that, as long as the two of them didn't go back to Konoha village, the other party's plan would fail. Seeing this scene, the Kirigakure and Boo who were chasing behind were also panicked. The order they received was to drive Kakashi and the other two back to Konoha village without killing them. But Kakashi didn't play by the rules at all, choosing to attack the checkpoint head on, and not wanting to escape to Konoha village, which made them feel embarrassed. They had to stop them, but they couldn't kill them, which increased the risk of being killed by Kakashi. At this moment, their mood was extremely complicated. On the other side, Qishuang and others quickly grasped the specific location of Kakashi and the other two based on the intelligence of other teams and King's Byakugan. King was also on the way, and explained the mission this time in detail to the three people. This completely confirmed Qishuang's earlier guess that their mission target was the Three Tails on Hiranolin. Since their mission was different from that of the other Mist Ninjas, they had their own division of labor, so they did not rashly join the Mist Ninjas who were chasing and blocking them. Instead, they picked a small hill and looked at the scene of the Mist Ninjas playing cat and mouse from afar with great comfort. "Look, those two Konoha guys chose to fight head on and attack the checkpoint." Terumi pointed at the two separate figures at the bottom of the mountain and shouted. Because the distance was too far, she could not see clearly. She could only barely judge, based on the situation of the pursuit between the two sides, that the two individuals being chased were the driven Konoha ninjas. Chapter 125 Genius. It seems that the plan of the old guys above is going to fail. Qishuang shook her head, not optimistic about the current situation. Not really. Terumi Medi turned her head to look at him. She didn't quite understand such pessimistic remarks. Zabuza quietly leaned on the side with the amber pure bottle, staring at the bottom without blinking, without saying a word. What Qishuang said is very likely. On the other side, King, who had been paying attention to the situation with his Byakugan, nodded and said, "The guy who saved the temporary Jinchuriki of the Three Tails was Sharingan Kakashi." With the supervision range of the Byakugan, he easily confirmed the identity of the silver-haired masked boy. "Oh, is he really powerful?" Terumi Medi asked curiously. Zabuza next to him also cast an inquiring look at the leader. They had heard of the name Sharingan Kakashi before, so they knew that it was a boy about their age. A genius ninja who reached the level of Jonin at the age of 12. But they had only heard of him and had never met him up close. Therefore, they were extremely curious and compared themselves with the famous genius of the same age who was far behind them. King thought for a while held his chin and said, whether it is his ninjutsu or taijutsu, he is already at the level of a jonin, and is indeed much better than you. It's just that, because of his age, his combat experience is a little less than that of us senior jonins. But if compared with you, this is naturally not a disadvantage, because you are the same age. As he said this, he looked at the three people solemnly. Hearing this, Meditarumi pouted her lips. She was obviously not happy about Captain King's evaluation, but King was their captain, so he would naturally not favor Kakashi, an outsider. Even the captain who had fought with him said so the fact that Kakashi was much better than them was irrefutable. However, she, who had always been called a genius by the Miss Ninjas, was suddenly told that she was not as good as another guy of the same age, and she felt bad after all. Zabuza, who was standing next to him, tightened the handle of his sword after listening to the captain's story, and his eyes showed a bit more fighting spirit. Such a genius was exactly the opponent he was looking for. As for Nana Frost, in King's eyes, she was still calm and indifferent. Because he knew clearly that among his peers at this time, Kakashi was the strongest, and there was nothing to argue about. But it was only limited to this time. After that, Kakashi would fall into a state of depression for a long time, and the aura of genius would dim a lot. Many of his peers also caught up with him. Nana Qishuang, who was paying close attention to the situation below, pointed at the two figures and said, with Kakashi's genius, he would never leave his life behind and rush through the barrier. But he did it anyway. It was definitely not a whim. It's very likely that he has seen the purpose of the Kirigakure troops behind to expel them, so he wants to do the opposite. No matter what, he will never follow our wishes and escape back to Konoha. After saying that, he sighed deeply, his mouth full of helplessness. Well, good analysis. Ao nodded and praised. Meditarumi cast an admiring look as usual, while Zabuza curled his lips and felt a little depressed. On the other side, Kakashi and Rin Hirano chose to force their way through the barrier and kill the Konoha camp directly, but he was only one person after all, and he had to distract himself to protect his companions. After killing one person, 2 more appeared. After killing 2, 4 more appeared. Facing the Kirigakure ninjas who kept coming out to intercept him, he gradually felt powerless. Kakashi, leave me alone. Go. It's not too late. Lin's eyes were red as she looked at the dense wounds on the little boy's body. The two hid in the bushes and temporarily avoided a round of pursuit. She took advantage of the bushes to take cover and used medical ninjutsu to heal Kakashi's wounds. Enduring the stinging pain from the wounds on his body, the little boy smiled casually and said, "Don't worry, Lin. I will definitely take you out." But, before she could finish her words, Kakashi continued, "I will stay behind to cover you. You go straight to the northwest. Konoha's frontline camp is in that direction. The shorter the time it takes you to bring back reinforcement, the greater my chances of survival." "No, I can't." The little girl's eyes were red, and she shook her head, trying her best not to shed tears. "Don't worry, I will definitely hold on until you bring reinforcement back to save me." Kakashi gave her a confident smile again, and stopped her from continuing to treat him, and said, "Stay here and don't move, I'll go and lead them away." Shadow clone technique. With a puff of white smoke rising at his feet, an identical boy appeared next to him. It was an extremely advanced clone technique, and unlike ordinary clone techniques, this clone had a physical body. Unlike ordinary clone techniques that had little combat power, it also had considerable combat power. "Lin, I'm leaving." Without giving the little girl a chance to refute, after the clone used another transformation technique to turn himself into the appearance of a little girl, Kakashi and the clone rushed out of the bushes and rushed straight in another direction. By the time Lin came to her senses, Kakashi had already rushed a long way, attracting the surrounding Miss Ninjas to chase him. Since it was already a fact, in order not to let his efforts go to waste, Lin had to hide in the bushes in pain, looking at the backs of many Miss Ninjas chasing after her, tightly covering her mouth, trying her best not to cry out. When there were no more Miss Ninjas around, she quietly leaned out and ran towards the direction of the Konoha camp. On the hill, seeing this scene, Meditarumi exclaimed, "Why is there another person in the bushes?" King replied expressionlessly, "The one who left with Kakashi earlier was his own clone. Those idiots didn't even know they had lost their target." After saying that, he spat fiercely on the ground. With his superior position and the super insight of the Byakugan, Kakashi's little movements in the bushes did not escape his eyes. However, so many mist ninjas were fooled around by a 10-year-old child with his clones, and the entire mist village was embarrassed. He really couldn't bear to watch it. Should we tell them? Mediterumi asked in surprise. No need. King waved his hand and added, Kakashi and the clone can't hide it for long, and the Jinchuriki still can't escape. In the dense forest in the north of the Land of Fire, the one-eyed little boy who tried his best to escape from the cave was rushing to the coastal front in the east of the Land of Fire. How far is it? He anxiously asked the white Zetsu who was attached to him. According to the message from other companions nearby, we are almost there. White Zetsu replied very calmly. Vote for recommendation, everyone. It would be nice if everyone gave me one vote. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.